Welcome back, everybody, to the Movie Date with Rob and Matt. It's a podcast for people who love talking about movies but don't want to be too smug about it. And I'm Matt.
I'm Rob.
And I'm very glad to be sitting here to talk about movies with you.
It would have been really funny if you kept just doing that and never starting the show.
It just gets caught in a loop. I gave like the 3, 2, 1, 0. -1, -2. That would require me to start doing some negative math, and I'll be.
There's a hilarious bit from The Office where Dwight has to stall for time. He's like, "How many people are we going to lose to this damn fire or this damn plague or whatever?" And he goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they cut back. He's like, 20, 24, 25. I'm like, Dwight, we get it. Hold on, I'm not done. And he goes, 26, and he just keeps going forever.
I love that you brought up The Office because that's related to. What we're talking about today.
That wasn't even like, I didn't even.
I'm always looking out for segues. I'm always just like, segue spotted.
Yeah, we're talking about
A Quiet Place.
a silent location.
A silent
part
location.
2.
The second time.
The second time. A silent location 2, Electric Boogaloo.
No, we don't do Electric Boogaloo anymore.
We don't?
No, because the Boogaloo Boys.
I don't know what that is.
They're the survivalist right wingers who want to get out in the woods and take over the country.
Oh, I never.
They call themselves the Boogaloos Boys because they want Civil War Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. Yeah,
Fuck those guys.
I'm sorry. Hey, Rob, fascist ruined something on the internet again.
Oh no!
Sorry.
I don't believe you.
all those guys on the internet, they want to kill us. Anyway, so we
I
got.
have something. Movie news. This is not movie news. I watched Bo Burnham's Inside.
I need to watch that. Everyone's saying it's great.
Oh,
I don't know. I haven't watched it.
haven't you though?
Is that like have I watched other Bo Burnham bits?
No,
Yes, I have. Rob is also
It starts
enjoying
off-
some
I'm
goldfish.
eating goldfish.
We
I'll
just
probably
got
stop.
this is an immediate like right after the theater, and Rob went up to ask for a pair of hot dogs and was denied because they were understaffed.
So they've redone their menu. If you look
It's
up there,
very
different.
minimal.
So
It's
it's
very
like
minimal.
popcorn, drinks, hot dog, or a pickle.
Yeah,
I'm
it's a
pretty
$5 pickle,
I'm pretty
$4
sure, yeah,
pickle.
$5 pickle. You could buy a whole jar of pickles for a $5 pickle.
Do you buy a whole jar of pickles for $1?
That's the only thing I get at movies are hot dogs because everything else is ridiculous. But I don't eat hot dogs enough to like be like, oh no, I could have made all these. Like, I'm not going to eat a package of 10 hot
it's
dogs.
a treat.
Yeah, so
It's
like
a
I don't
treat.
give a
It's
fuck
like
about it.
It's like I don't go and make popcorn all the time.
They
But I
have
like
like
popcorn
who
at
orders
theaters.
a pickle at the movies?
I don't know. There's
When have you
there's a
sat
big
down?
pickle people out there.
I like pickles.
I like pickles.
I love them on sandwiches and burgers. But like, when's the last time you sat down next to someone with a big old? And you're like,
That would be
never.
That would not be okay. Just you're sitting there watching a movie like The Quiet Place. All of a sudden, just a nice zesty vinegar crunch.
It never happens.
I would want
My point is, like,
want a monster to eat them at that.
You know,
point.
for the food cost of buying those pickles, they could stop buying pickles and they can bring back their whole other menu.
Yeah, that's true.
But like, I went up there, I was like, "Can I have some? I'd like 2 hot dogs, please." And they were like, "I'm sorry, unfortunately, like we don't have any hot dogs made, and the only ones we have are frozen, so it would take a while to like get them ready." And I'm like, "Never mind."
When I was getting my
all I could
ticket,
think of
I
was,
saw
like-
one hot dog going up and down on that conveyor, and I'm like, that's just there for show.
All I can think of is like, put more hot. This is the Bo. Speaking of Bo Burnham, this is the make Pringle cans lids wider.
Oh yeah.
So my hand in. Put like when you get down to like 1 hot dog, put more hot dogs on that thing so they can cook. It's practical. Anyway,
I did hear a couple behind me complaining about like, well, we can't get Coca-Cola. They moved over to Pepsi. No. And I'm just sitting there like,
it's all the same.
I'm like,
doesn't matter.
I was like, does that ruin your experience? As you got to drink a Pepsi Cola now?
Oh no. But all I can think of is like, you're like, we're out of hot dogs. I was like, so half of your menu is non-existent. Anyway, it's fine though. But we went out.
Ruins my day.
It ruined my day.
But that's why we're snacking on goldfish. So.
No, anyway, Bo Burnham Inside. Yeah. It starts off really good and descends into Bo Burnham either pretending to be horribly depressed or being horribly depressed.
I think he probably is horribly depressed. He is a comedian.
Also, there's a song he wrote in it called All Eyes on Me, which is the irony of the song is that there are no jokes in the song. He just wrote a song and sang it to you.
He is a musician.
He is, but like all of his there's another song earlier on where Welcome to the Internet, where he tells you like it's like a villain reveal song. Like a James Bond villain. And it's a very great. I'm almost tempted to pause and like let you hear it, but like it's a really good like look at what the internet is or whatever. And it's like all the little rhyme schemes or whatever. It's like What was one of the lines that I loved so much about it? And he was like, it's like, which Power Ranger are you? You should kill your mom, like, or whatever, or something like that.
I need to definitely.
Yeah. No, it was. I thought it was really great.
I like Bo Burnham, and I've heard a lot of people say good things about this. Apparently, it's a very kind of like, as we're going to see over the next year or so, post-COVID media, where it's all like, we just went through a giant existential ennui and in the middle of a global disaster. What are we gonna make now?
Yeah. There's a song about, he describes a bunch of things, which is like a couple holding hands, a shot of the ocean, inspirational cat posters, and he's like, quotes from Lord of the Rings misattributed to Martin Luther King or something. And he's like, is this heaven or is it a white woman's Instagram? And then he keeps going on the bit explaining all these different like things. But
Lord of the Rings.
But the cool thing about Bo Burnham is that he's able to like take these ideas and he's able to be very cynical and be like, white women are basic bitches and there's nothing that distinguishes them. Are you chewing? Matt's moving off the mic as he chews.
I'm doing the chocolate rain to step away to breathe to eat potato. I mean, these chips.
He does that thing where he's making fun of like all these Instagrams are the same, all these people are the same. But then he also goes like, white women's Instagrams are kind of nice, and it's probably nice that we have people that savor the savory, like the good parts of life or whatever. So like it's really good that he can straddle that line and always make it funny. There's a really dark one
It's
where
a sincerity sort of. It's a sincerity thing, I guess.
There's a really dark one where like he's like explaining how the world works about like pollen and bees, and then he has a little sock puppet that he uses to help get the joke across, and the sock puppet goes on a rant of its own about like capitalism and the imperialist nature of all these people and everything. He's like, oh, like, that's great. Like, why don't you explain that to me? He's like, don't make me have to be responsible for your self-actualization. Like, do your own research. And then
wake yourself up.
And then Bo does that thing where he's like, what did you say to me? And then it gets real dark, and then it just becomes like the way the system stifles voices over form. And he was like, shut your fucking mouth. And he goes like, tell me. And he goes, now sing the rest of this song with me. And he's like, okay. And it gets like real awkward. And the Bo goes back to like the Sesame Street song. It's really good. It gets real dark at the end. And I was like, oh, that was like, they're good. They're really funny. And then halfway through it, Bo's been like, I haven't been outside in a long time. And he goes, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this damn special or whatever. Because he wrote and directed and shot it all himself inside of his apartment.
Right. And that's kind of
inside.
Right. And that's kind of what it sort of is a representative of, I guess. Because he's always been kind of raw in energy a little bit.
Yeah. But at the end of it, I was like, I didn't laugh nearly as much as I thought it would, which doesn't mean it isn't good.
Right.
But by the end of it, I was like, is he okay? I hope he's okay. He's like, he's kind of a cool, important, creative voice out there in the world right now, and I don't want to lose him to like COVID. And there's in the middle of that all eyes on me thing, he has a speech and he goes like, I stopped doing comedy for like 4 years because I had a panic attack during one of my last shows or whatever. And I just decided to stop doing it. And it's like, so I thought in order to make myself better and take care of my mental health, I would just stop doing it for a while. And you know what happened? Is like, I got better. I got so much better to the point that I was like, you know what? I think I'm finally ready to like get back out there on the stage and like start talking about all these jokes. And then the funniest thing happened. Like COVID.
And then COVID happened.
But like,
he also got, he did get to be in a movie.
That's true. Movie. And direct a movie. Mm-hmm. In a movie. And
that's right. He directed
8th grade.
8th grade. Yeah.
Which is good. But I was like, as he's singing this song, there's no jokes in it. It's just him talking about like the whole world's ending and I don't give a shit. Whatever. It gets pretty dark. But anyway, check it out if you get a chance.
I check it out.
We're not talking about people inside. No, we're talking about people
outside.
We're talking about the Quiet Place part.
Right.
I was trying to think of a segue.
We also watched, I guess, because, usually we do our movie news and everything, and there's really not much. Also, because we just got out of seeing this movie, so we really are hyped on it, or at least, like, have energy taken from it.
Yeah. We saw the Space Jam trailer.
We watched the Space Jam trailer.
And it's fine. It's exactly what it's supposed to be, and it's not for me.
Yeah,
it's for children and people who loved the first Space Jam,
right?
Which is not me. It's fine.
I guess I was telling him LeBron has to live up against such performance acting luminaries as Michael Jordan.
Is the villain just regular Don Cheadle?
I hope so.
I think
that'd be
is
kind of great.
I think
they should have brought back Wayne Knight.
Yeah, that'd be pretty good.
Just bring back Wayne Knight. Just give him something to do. He's great. I love.
What
Wayne
is he
Knight.
doing? What does he do now?
He's like character acting. He does voice acting, stuff like that. I think he does stuff for the Batman, the new the Harley Quinn series. Don't take my word for it, but I'm sure he does a character in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's about as much time as I'm willing to dedicate to Space Jam 2.
Okay. Did you hear that that DC isn't allowing a joke in the Harley Quinn series because it features Batman going down on Catwoman, and they're like, no oral sex. Batman doesn't. They said heroes don't do that.
Who said this? I have to know.
It was one of the creators came out and was just like, I had this whole bit, this little joke I had where, because Harley Quinn's a comedy series, an adult comedy series, and it's like, he's like, it was Batman giving oral pleasure to Catwoman, and they said, no, we're still selling toys, we're still selling Batman. Batman can't do that. Heroes don't do that. And everyone's been having a lot of fun with that.
I mean, I guess when you look at it from that perspective, maybe there's a point, but I'm also kind of like, Batman has sex in the comic books. Mm-hmm. And I know like the comic books are also kind of marketed to younger people as well, but like there's plenty of comic books that aren't. Like the whole purpose of Hush is that he has a whole relationship with Catwoman in that whole series.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they fuck at some point in there.
Well, I think it's the power dynamic thing about oh, Batman can get his,
but he can't go down.
But he can't go down a Catwoman. That's come on. Anyway,
if anything, it may make more sense because Batman's outward appearance is like this domineering like fighter who like just can discombobulate everyone. But with Catwoman, he's sensitive. He's a sensitive lover. Sensitive, and he's a giver.
DC said no.
DC said
the person quoting it said heroes don't do that, and everyone's just like, there's a couple people who are.
I would argue heroes do that.
And knowing is half the battle. I just thought about that for a second.
Such a weird thing to say.
Yeah, look into it.
But also, like, I doubt that. Like, here's the thing about like at least Marvel would never do that either. Marvel still like cuts to black for their sex scenes.
Marvel is entirely asexual.
Yeah. So I'm like, Marvel is like, we're not even going to open the door for this possibility.
No.
So I appreciate DC trying, and then the corporate people being like, no.
Marvel will just be like, oh, we'll put Scarlett Johansson in whatever nice outfits you want, but no one is having sex.
Yeah, apparently. Even Captain America. He goes back in time for his lady love, whom he's never done it with.
Nope. There's nice romantic American kissing.
Yeah.
That's it.
The way you just said that, like, that's as far as we're going. You know what? I would argue that
because then you got to go through the thing of like the whole thing of like the quadrant thing of like I've seen it's a meme. It's a quadrant meme of like of panels, and it's like knows what sex is, never had it, and knows what sex is, has had it, knows what fucking is, and it's like who has sex and who fucks, and just go through the Avengers.
That's the Ross joke of Ross, or not Ross. There's a joke where I think it's from like This Is 40 or something, where Paul Rudd, and he goes like, some people fuck and some people have sex, and he goes like Ross from Friends, like he has sex, like Prince fucks or whatever. It's something like that. I look like I fuck like Ross from Friends, or have sex like Ross, or it's some joke like that or whatever.
And we could also say Ant-Man had that because it's Paul Rudd.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, exactly. But I would argue a lack of sex in superhero movies makes the genre worse.
But we're also
I was expecting a bigger reaction from you.
Well, I don't need it. I don't need it because you can't really tell a story that has like that. I mean, like we obviously like Batman versus Superman. Snyder made it in.
Oh, has the podcast. Yeah,
and I brought him in this time.
Yeah, I didn't even make it.
Well, I was thinking about like the bathtub scene where he floats above and with him and Lois Lane.
Yeah.
And that's a very shot very intimately. It's not overtly. There's no nudity or anything, but it's like. And we don't have to go down this pipeline, but it is a difference between like how do you make a story in a comic book, a traditional quote unquote comic book story, where it's not just fan service and lasciviousness at the cost of the actors.
Well, that's the thing I like about that scene.
Because there's a difference between like a sex scene and Michael Bay like having Megan Fox just be like, do dialogue, but because no one's going to care about it. And it's like, no, she's an actress. She deserves it. It's like, nope, that camera says different. We're looking at your legs.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And like, that's the thing I actually like about that scene is that scene.
It's tender. It's intimate.
Well, it's not even that it's more that it's intimate than it's tender, because I'm sure afterwards, like, Superman clapped those cheeks or whatever. But my point is like that
but they do because they're in love.
That it's a moment that happens because they're comfortable with each other,
Right?
Like a real relationship.
That's storytelling using
Unless you're like
intimacy.
a Mormon, in which case you never see your partner naked until in the dark.
Mormons
I'm
fuck.
kidding. I shouldn't say Mormons, like Scientologists. What's a religion I can kick real quick and edit this? I'm kidding.
I'm just going down the list like.
Yeah, but no, I know what you mean. Like, if a sex scene happened in a Marvel movie, it might be too for the pleasure of the audience. Whereas I feel like the scene,
Which would be weird because given the universality of the audience, like you got kids here, you got parents here, you got everybody else. Everybody's there, so it has to be as universal as possible.
where I felt like with that scene is Snyder felt a way like this isn't about being performative. It's about Superman sees how sad Lois is because she almost got shot in the face or whatever, and like she's so comfortable with him, she's like just naked in a bathtub. And they have this nice, what I would consider like a real human moment that reflects Superman's humanity, because he does something that I hope all people have had a chance to do in a way. It's very human.
Yeah.
And I would argue like,
And it humanizes their relationship.
yeah,
more.
and I would argue like more human representations of sex in superhero movies would probably be a good thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, you're right.
That'd be
I mean, Snyder's probably the one that uses it the most. You know, Watchmen comes to mind. You know, and things like that.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
There's some goofy fucking in Watchmen, but also that's anyway. We'll put it back in bed, literally.
Yeah.
And we're
I just like, just to put the last button on it. Every time a sex scene happens in a superhero movie and it cuts to black, I just go like, I just kind of shake my head, because I feel like it's just childish in a way. I'm like, we're all adults here. Plenty of the people in this audience right now probably watch porn more than they watch superhero sex. I'm not saying it should turn into like a porn parody,
right?
But I am arguing that
there's a place for that.
Yeah, there is definitely a place for that. But like, it's just people, man. It's a part of our life. Like, I just watched the new RoboCop movie. I say new, the one that came out like 6 years ago.
Remake Cop.
Yeah.
Reboot Cop.
And I could
Total remake.
Yeah.
I had fun when those movies came out. It was like two Paul
kinda like
Verhoeven remakes, and I was just like, me and my friends were just like, yeah, Remake Cop, Total Reboot.
And for
The Total Reboot is not as bad. It's fine.
The new Total Recall is awful. I hated it.
I thought there were parts of it that were kind of fun, but compared to the original, like fuck that.
Yeah. But like the RoboCop reboot surprised me. Like the whole first half of the movie, I was like, this is kind of good and stuff. And like, there's a great scene where it's played by Joel Kinnaman.
Yes.
And I've always thought him to be a very kind of stiff actor. And there's a part where he finally wakes up and they try to explain to him what's happened to him, which a car bomb like blew him up or whatever.
Right.
And he's had a chance to calm
He
down.
didn't get shot to pieces with a shotgun by Red Foreman.
Yeah.
In one of the most terrifying scenes in film history.
Yeah. And there's a part where he just kind of calms down and he goes, "Show me." And they start taking his robot body apart.
Because I remember this part. It's like you see like his head connect to like just a spine, and it's wild.
And they take his legs off, and he's like, "Oh God!" And every time they take something away, he just breaks down. And he's like, he has a hand left, so he can still touch and feel things. He has lungs and like a heart and like his part of his brain and stuff. And after they take it all away, he just like cries. He's like, "There's nothing left." And I was like, you know what that is? That's a guy thinking about the fact that he'll never have sex again or eat again or any of that stuff. And I'm like, that's a thing about that movie that I was like, it's very human.
Yeah.
The things like that. That's stuff that I appreciate. And when a movie skirts an issue like that, I'm just like, you lost. I didn't really deduct a point, but I'm thinking like that was a missed opportunity for Pathos.
And it works for that movie. It wouldn't work for Verhoeven's RoboCop because the point is because it's a satire.
Yeah.
And the point is he's dehumanized to become a machine for the corporate agenda.
Yeah.
Like his humanity is stolen from him, and they're like, quickly make him into an automaton.
Yeah. There is some satire in the new one too that I kind of appreciated. Like Samuel L. Jackson plays like an Alex Jones, Sean Hannity type.
Yes,
It's pretty
I
good.
remember that part.
Anyway,
and
but, we're not here to talk about that stuff.
No, we're not.
Let's
Let's go ahead and talk about this movie we just saw.
Yeah.
Welcome to your feature presentation.
Yeah.
As I've mentioned before, and as you mentioned when we were stepping out of it, I've been very lukewarm, if not cold, on the original Quiet Place.
Would you like to kind of quickly summarize your feelings about the first one and why it didn't connect with you?
I kind of wish I'd watched it again. I missed out an opportunity. I thought about it the other day, and I went ahead and watched something else.
You watched The Office again or whatever. Or you watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure again.
I didn't watch JoJo's. There's a new series I'm watching. It's called Moriarty the Patriot, and it's an anime series.
See, you start watching new stuff, and I just go back and start watching old
stuff.
stuff.
Oh, no, I go back and watch old stuff all the time.
No, I mean old stuff that I never watched. Like I started watching Sword Art Online and stuff.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Good luck with that.
Matt
Good luck with SOA. Go back and watch Dot Hack. That started the isekai whole thing.
That's what I noticed. As I was
Time.
watching it, I was like, I remember watching because I used to love that show, and there's like 3 of those shows or 4 of those shows.
Well, there's also all the games that came with it.
Yeah,
like.
But I was like, this feels like Dot Hack, but made for an American audience.
Yeah. Well, it started the whole isekai thing, which is. Oh, I died and now I'm in a video game world, which is now like the genre in anime.
Yeah, but
I say all that to say
it's all right so far. I'm waiting to see where it goes. But anyway,
it's fallen into the overrated thing, but now it's like so old. Like hating on SOA is kind of like old hat.
Yeah, go back to hating on A Quiet Place.
Well, the show I was watching was Moriarty the Patriot, and it's James Moriarty. They're all pretty anime boys, and he's like, he gets adopted, and his adopted brother's like, I think you're a genius, and I think you should tear down this aristocratic, unfair capitalist world. And he's like, I will, but it's going to require me to kill people. And so he's like an anti-hero or an anti-villain.
Is there a Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah, Sherlock Holmes shows up in it later.
About to say, because if there's Moriarty without Sherlock Holmes, no thank you, sir.
It's pretty cool so far. He's got like his own little group and everything, and he's consulting villain like he was before. But instead of being a crouchy old man, they're all pretty anime boys.
Of course. They all look slightly effeminate.
Yes. I'll show you. You'll be like, oh, okay, everyone has spiky, colorful hair.
Yeah.
And all. Anyway, the original Quiet Place, I think, especially after watching this, I think that it was undone for me in a lot of ways because of how much they leaned in on its gimmick. And I've mentioned this before about the gimmick. I thought that it was going to be more of like literally like a silent film, where it was almost going to be like the movie, the trailers and all the advertising and everything really emphasize it. It's like, this is a movie about like absolute silence. And then the moments where it breaks silence is the moments of great tension. And then as I'm watching it, I'm like, this is a loud ass movie. His soundtrack is sweeping and the score is heavy and all that. It's melodramatic as hell. I thought the acting wasn't particularly great. I thought that Emily Blunt was really underserved in it. Krasinski is just kind of, he's doing his Krasinski thing, which is like you know, like good American man. Like he's kind of like inherited this Mel Gibson sort of thing.
Yeah.
In more ways than one. Like he's like, I gotta protect.
Did he have a Jewish tirade that I didn't know?
No. I'm just saying he's a very conservative individual. He comes.
Yeah, I think so.
There's actually something about this movie I want to talk about with that, because he directed this one. I didn't know he did, and I think that he's found. I'll get to it.
Yeah. Okay.
Put a pin in that patriotism of John Krasinski.
Yeah.
John Krasinski.
I get what you mean about the acting, though. He's even in this movie when there's parts with John Krasinski in it. I feel like he's stiff and he has like kind of one expression, kind of, and he also kind of knows what's going to happen before it happens,
he's
kind of thing.
Hyper competent leading man. He'll sacrifice everything, but he knows exactly what to do.
Yeah,
and in A Quiet Place is haul up his friends with all of his guns, and it kind of gives. I remember the first Quiet Place giving me this vibe of like traditional family protecting itself from the fall of tradition. And I like read into that movie. I was like, this is kind of a conservative movie. This is about like
there's a little bit of that. I remember him talking about like the fact that like they're having a baby and like post-apocalyptic whatever, and having a baby is ill-advised because the pro-choicers don't want you to do it or whatever. Like and John Krasinski talked about that in an interview, and he was just like, honestly, like I didn't even like none of that even crossed my mind. Like I was just making a movie about a guy who wants to protect his family, and I kind of tend to believe
and
it.
I'm not fully.
Also, he may or may not
throwing
have stolen the idea of this movie from a book. Anyway.
Yes, yeah.
There is
which
that
did they
thing.
get noted in this? Like I said, it's based on characters by.
I think that's just the previous two writers of the first movie, because he wrote this one.
And so I kind of like there are things about the first one where I was like, I wish it leaned more. It was way too stuck in the same spot. The real standouts were the kids, particularly the actress. I
don't know her name.
We'll
The
pull it
deaf
up
girl.
because I'm not going to call her the deaf
I'll call her
girl
that. No, okay.
because she gets a lot to do in this next movie and it really works.
Yeah.
So the things that I thought were actually interesting about the first one was Millicent Simmons is the actress who plays the deaf girl, plays the daughter.
Yeah.
And then is it Noah Jupe is the boy? He's kind of there. I just found it to be I found it to not be living up to this like big hype that was surrounding it. And I found it slightly patronizing, and I found it kind of boring and loud.
Patronizing, you say? What particularly did you, I'm just curious. What did you find?
Well, I just felt like it was way more melodramatic and way more kind of like themey. Like again, going back to that sort of vague, like subtle patriotism stuff that was going on in the background of it, or at least that it's like, oh, my brain was picking up on that. And then the creature design I didn't like. I was like, oh, that's it.
I hate to break it to you, the creatures look pretty much the same in this movie.
Yeah, and I kind of like them now.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm neutral to their design. Again,
I am too.
I think you really have to hit the books for something that really unsettles, and I don't think that's what they were wanting to do, was to create some like Trevor Henderson horrifying monster that you can't stare at for too long or it upsets you too much. They're like, it's a Resident Evil monster. It literally looks like the Lickers from Resident Evil.
Yeah. I will say, seeing them like interact with like crowds of people is much more visceral than like it kills one guy.
Well,
like,
but
when it's
also
when
like
it throws a dude
they
into
just
a
beat
boat.
the shit out of people. They're not eating them. Like I thought, I was like, so they're just like ragdolling people. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
It got me a couple of laughs. So they just show up and start sucker punching people away. I was like, so that's what they do.
Yeah.
They just beat the shit out of people
Well,
till
there's
they
a couple
die.
times where they hit someone and they like there's a big mist of red blood where they were.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
We could have used more of that. I'll get to that. Overall, I found the movie to be kind of just, I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's it. I thought Emily Blunt was underused. I thought it was too loud. All of these things have improved greatly in this movie. I feel like Krasinski not having to extend himself out to be in both places has really showed its worth. Like, this one feels so... I remember when we got out, I was like, I could watch that again. It's a very pretty movie.
Yeah.
It does something that I'm very happy it does, which is Krasinski definitely has a language that he likes to film in. He likes these wide, sweeping pastoral shots, and it's a slow, methodical. It's almost like it's nice that I already know what's going on, which honestly, that prelude, like the first part of the movie, sums it up pretty nicely.
Yeah.
It's just we need to know things that happened in the last movie to know where everyone's left off at.
Yeah.
But that's kind of my thoughts about A Quiet Place. I remember being really hard on it. I remember being really hot takey about it. I was like, fucking Bird Box is better than A Quiet Place.
I thought Bird Box was mediocre too.
It is. No, it's not a good movie at all. But I was like, I liked its premise more.
I think
I
think these interesting concept horror movies, they kind of bitch out when they don't like stick their landing. In my recommendations, I'll talk more about movies that I think stick their landing.
Well, also, I could see that Krasinski didn't want to make a movie that was like a gore hound. He's not making Feast. Like,
That's fine, but
so it doesn't have teeth.
It's the Jeff Nichols criticism I have. Is like, you're too subtle for your own good.
Which is funny because he's
Mike Nichols.
No, Jeff Nichols is our Arkansas boy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's funny. He's going to be doing
the
spinoffs of this,
yeah,
and then you can kind of tell that this is a franchise that's going to be good to him because of this movie.
Yeah.
Because
it would be nice to see subtle Jeff Nichols in a franchise that is a little more overt.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't like in the dreams of not Midnight Special of Take Shelter. It's just like, oh, like there's stuff outside. What is it? Are people banging on? Oh, I don't know. And I'm like be a little more specific.
Well, it doesn't have to be so ambiguity. It doesn't have so much ambiguity because it's like we know there are monsters that came down from whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. What did you think about the first Quiet Place? Like, what?
I liked it. I had just like little nitpicks, and I have little nitpicks with this one too. But like my little nitpicks were like, why would you have like my big one? Not to be like political, but like, why would you have a baby in a world like this? Such a bad idea. Like borderline on an irresponsible idea. You could get that baby killed. You could get everyone else killed.
That baby's gonna start screaming.
Yeah,
and everyone dies.
And look, to their credit, they thought about that. They have the little thing, like the box that
they have
in.
the Noah box,
Yeah.
or the not the Noah box, the Moses box.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, because it floats on the water.
Yeah.
There's some biblical imagery in these movies. But it doesn't play off entirely. It doesn't become cheesy.
No.
I was just like, that baby's floating in a box.
Yeah.
That's like Old Testament shit right there.
So like, but I there's little things like that. There's little audio engineer nitpicks I had.
Yeah, you
those I don't hold them responsible,
right?
Because
that would be like me, like. Well, no, I don't know anything. I would be like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. But you come from the world of audio technicians and
that'd
production.
Be like, I don't know if you know how a book is sewed together because you work at a bookstore or whatever.
I don't
but like,
know how a
they'd
book
be
is
like,
sewn together.
that's not how a book is made.
Or if
whatever.
somebody recommended something, I'd be like, nobody would recommend that.
Yeah, or whatever. But yeah, no, I liked it for the most part. The thing that got me the most was like, I think if John Krasinski is conservative, he's at least the kind of conservative. He's like Hollywood conservative.
Yeah, he's like
whatever.
a Chris Pratt Hollywood conservative.
Yeah, and he's to the point where he's like, I'm not making propaganda here. Like I'm making, I'm just making a movie.
Yeah,
and like while I can infer certain things about his politics, like there are things that I'm also like, this is just people reading into that. Like I don't think it's intentional. It's sort of like that when we watched Army of the Dead, and you were like you brought up the movie kind of feels like it could have this weird anti-mask thing, but it was shot way before COVID.
Yeah,
happened.
and that's where I'm like, it was just mostly unfortunate that it dropped
it's just
at the
a victim
time.
of circumstance,
Right?
Or whatever.
And like, while I think that A Quiet Place, the first one, could be read into being more reactionary, this one is less of that. I was kind of waiting for the shoe to drop and being like, where's the heavy-handed like message? And it's like, not really. It actually subverts it a little bit, and it subverts it a lot with particularly one character, and we'll get to it when we talk about. I mean, I guess we could talk about the movie.
Yeah.
Spoiler free. We'll go ahead and try to get as much spoiler free for a sequel.
Yeah, I will say the most immediate good thing that I noticed that I thought was just way better than the previous one. I think Cillian Murphy is a better leading man.
That's what I was going to get at. Is we got Cillian Murphy
for a couple of reasons. One, he doesn't pretend to know everything.
No,
but he's also in a weird way like John Krasinski is the man who's like he's competent and knows exactly what to do, but he's just trying to save his family. Whereas Cillian Murphy strikes me as a guy who is like, if John Krasinski and Cillian Murphy's character had a fight, Cillian Murphy would kick his ass.
Right.
Because
he's rougher. He's
hardened.
Yeah.
Or whatever, and he's lived in this world, and he knows what the people out there are like, which means he's had run-ins. Whereas John Krasinski's been like chilling on his farm and having a quiet like peace day.
He's having a quiet place.
Yeah,
Cillian Murphy is not having a quiet place.
It's just an extended vacation that has occasional like child murders in it. Like,
that has occasionally getting.
I will say that the opening of the Quiet Place when his son gets taken is like, it's hard.
Did you notice in this intro the camera when he's walking because it opens day one and there are moments in this movie where I was like, that's really smart. That's really clever. And it starts immediately with like the town's quiet, the lights turn. He does an illegal maneuver. Well, I think he's doing a left on red. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, that's illegal.
but then he gets out and it's just like, oh, everyone's at the baseball field. Because it's that little kind of New York town. It's like a little not Appalachian, but it's a little outside Albany little town.
Yeah.
It's close to Connecticut. As he's walking by some of like the things in the background, the camera lingers for a moment on the rocket ship toy that he's going to give his son.
Yeah.
And I saw that. I was like, that's really good. That's real. Again, this feels like Krasinski finally snapped his knuckles and it's just like, I made a movie. I know the kind of movies I want to make. And he storyboarded the hell out of this in his head because every shot gets a lot. Like every shot is so well composed.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is a movie I could find myself watching again, like putting on in the background.
I probably will watch it
enjoying.
again, but I want to let it marinate for a little while.
Yeah.
Getting back to Cillian Murphy, though.
Getting back, so we get the introduction part, which is just like we see everything fine, and then like we catch a glimpse like Shanghai, something bad happened in Shanghai, and it's like, all right, this is day one.
Do you think that's supposed to be a reference, like, oh, it hit China first, or there's multiple?
Yeah.
Because later, I mean, small spoiler, I guess. We'll keep it spoiler free, but like at the baseball game, they stop because a meteor is coming to Earth.
Yeah, a meteor starts coming down, and at first I turned over to you. I was like, why is everyone not going? Ah! Just start screaming, but eventually they do all like, let's leave.
Yeah, because you don't know how big that meteor is. If it's big and it like hits there, like everyone's gonna get incinerated. So
which you did make a point of like, why didn't it impact? We never heard of
yeah,
impact.
like this gets to my first criticism. Is like they set up these things, but a smarter filmmaker would have been like, and let's go to that meteor,
and then the
yeah, or something like that. But like there's a little bit of like too subtle for its own good kind of stuff that happens here.
Well,
but
you saw one of these creatures before I did.
It was in the trees.
Yeah.
It's very subtle, but I'm 100% sure that's what it was. But I feel like Cillian Murphy's character makes for a better leading man because he's more battle hardened and he's a little bit more like.
And it's Cillian Murphy. You're not sure what
noted good actor.
Noted
Murphy.
good actor, but also in a lot of movies, particularly American movies, because he's Irish. Is he plays scumbags really well. And so when he's introduced in this movie, obviously, hey, Quiet Place 1, John Krasinski sacrifices himself and is killed.
Yeah.
Lee dies. And is left. Then the family is left to their own devices. They've discovered a few things. One, the monsters cannot handle high frequencies, a particular high frequency that is caused, at least as far as we know, by the daughter's hearing aid.
It's a feedback loop.
You
could create it with something else. You could create it like in Green Room where they put the microphone up to the PA and just let it blare.
But
you could probably do the same thing.
Cochlear implant thing is causing it specifically to fuck with them.
Yeah.
And so that they were able to gain some advantage, but not like big wins because it's like they're just one small family.
Yeah.
And so the opening of this film, they're just like, we get to see Cillian Murphy, like, he's just kind of a guy. He's got family and everything. They're friends.
Yeah.
Of course, 400 days later, the events have all taken place, and we're kind of left where we are. And the movie just literally opens with them just stepping out, leaving this place.
Yeah. And as they're traveling, the first person they happen to run into is well, they don't run into him first. They run into a creature first. There's the one little bit of gore that we do get comes with the boy.
Oh, it's rough.
And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see it coming.
No, I didn't
and it's
either.
because I can tell you why. It's because the trailer primed me. In the trailer, they hit a tripwire. And some bottles come down. Like, oh my God, run. I was like, oh, I know what's happening. And then they sneak another one in underneath it, which is very smart because I wasn't even
that kid's scream. Oh man, good on him because that was brutal.
Yeah.
And she's like having to, and Emily Blunt's just having to keep him like shut the fuck up because it's clearly like you see you all you're seeing from this is a scope of a rifle.
Yeah.
And you can tell like Cillian Murphy in this time has killed before probably, and is probably not hesitating to kill these people he knows and just like, I don't know. But then he sees them.
Well, I saw that sort of ambiguously. I was like, well, does he have binoculars or is he just using that because it helps him see better?
Yeah.
There is a part that like he's lingering on their heads as if like he's going to take a shot.
Right.
I don't know. I kind of like the idea that this is where like I'll get to like a larger criticism later is I don't feel like they wrap up his character arc as neatly as they should. Okay. Partly because I'll get to that.
We'll get to that in the I know what you mean because of the way the film plays out. But I thought that his arc is. We'll get to it.
He has all the best stuff to do, but they also don't stick the landing with him as best as they could, which is a shame because I think he's the most interesting character in the movie.
Him and the daughter and their interactions are really good. Like they do something where it's like he has to live up to an expectation that is not his to have.
Yeah.
And yet, it's up to him to have when the competency and the sort of inheritance of the John Krasinski character is in the daughter.
Yeah. She's
the one who's like, no, I got this, but I can't do it alone. Yeah.
If anything, I like the fact that she's so confident and then like within about, I don't know, 12 minutes of the movie after she goes on her journey, wink, wink. I'm not keep it spoiler free, but like she immediately almost gets killed.
Yeah.
Because of course she would. Because I immediately to you was like, this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea for multiple reasons. And I was like,
It's impulsive.
Yeah.
And I feel like, yeah, but essentially they go to find Cillian Murphy. And I've always called him Cillian. I don't know why.
it's definitely Killian.
It's Cillian Murphy. It's funny because I also called Ciarán Hinds Syrian Hinds, and I was like, well, nope, switch those.
Yeah, it's all right.
So they go find him, and he's bearded out and everything, and he's just like, I got nothing. And
You can't stay here. I don't have enough food. I don't have enough water.
he's lost everything. His family's gone, all that. He's a man he's the exact opposite of Krasinski's character in that he failed. He failed to keep his family safe. He's now a desperate man.
I wish this is
Even though he's got a really sick digs in this refinery, like he's got a good setup here.
Yeah, that's what I leaned over and you said. I was like, this is the best possible place to be trapped with one of these creatures because the sound bounces around and there's everything echoes off everything, and you hit it'd be impossible for it to locate exactly where you are.
Yeah.
So like he's thought that out better. Like John Krasinski is kind of an idiot because he's like, I'm gonna make a room where you can hear the slightest whisper, like my studio.
Yeah.
Like everything's dead in here. Like Cillian Murphy understood how to beat the creatures.
Well, he uses
better.
the blast furnace as like a hideaway spot, and I love that. Because at first I was like, why is he doing the thing with the watch? And I'm like, the movie's smart enough to be like, no, you'll figure it out. They'll run out of oxygen in there because it's sealed tight. This is another thing I like about this movie a lot is it doesn't tell much. It literally shows a lot and doesn't tell much, and that's really competent and confident of Krasinski as a director to make those work, where it's like we never hear one thing of someone saying, oh, make sure to put the towel over the lock. We just figure it out from repeated viewing to when it's subverted. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
That's really good. I mean, really, there's not much else to talk about beyond spoilers at this point, other than they're just like, we gotta find a way to get out of this.
Yeah. I had a couple of negatives, and one is I wish that we had more. John Krasinski we get a cool flashback. I think the movie would have been well served to give Cillian Murphy the same thing. I would have loved if we saw the same thing that happens. We follow John Krasinski from day one, and then we follow Cillian Murphy through day one.
Okay.
In the same town. So you can see how it affected him and where he went, and then I would say do another one where we see him lose his children.
Right.
Or we see him lose his wife.
Which
because they give sparing lines to it. There's a part in the movie, and I guess with this we'll just go ahead and get into spoilers. Where
there's not much. I mean, it's a part two. If you've watched it, it's a sequel. But there are obviously things coming up that were that are new.
There's a part where he goes to a beach and he opens a picture. I assume will be one of his wife, like his wife or
I think
his
it's his son. He's been drawing, he's been sketching pictures of his son.
Yeah, and he just kind of looks at it and feels sad. And I didn't feel nearly the emotional weight I would have if I'd watched his son die.
Right.
Because that's
or
what when I watch my two biggest emotional things in the first movie, and they're actually they're emotional here too, is when their youngest child is taken at the beginning of A Quiet Place Part 1. It is gut wrenching.
Yeah, and it's also because they have to not outwardly emote about it or they'll get killed too, and it's devastating.
And there's a part where and then the part where John Krasinski just screams to lure the creatures to him, and they just rip him apart.
Yeah,
that's good stuff. And I feel like we lost. I think I know it's not true, but I feel like John Krasinski was like, no one gets a better sacrifice than me. God damn it. He's like, I'm not gonna let you care more about him than me. But I feel like I would have liked, because I really like Cillian Murphy in this movie, and I would have liked it more if I had really seen his anguish. Because we just kind of take it for granted when we meet him. He's like, you can't stay here. I've lost everyone or whatever. And
I got enough food.
It would also make the part where Emily Blunt goes, Emmett, you need to go get her. I can't leave. You were my friend. He would have done the same for you. And she's just crying. She's like, please go help her. And he's just, he begrudgingly does it. We don't know that he says yes, but we assume that he says yes. Or
right. Yeah, that was one of the moments where I was just kind of I can imagine he's just gonna be like, no,
yeah.
I don't owe you anything. This ain't the same world anymore. But she almost is demanding him, you better go be husbandly, my great, awesome American husband, and go get my daughter back. And I was like,
and also I would have pointed.
I was like, you're Emily Blunt, you're a badass, you can go do it, except for that poor foot of yours.
Yeah, there's a weird part where she's like, you were out there, we saw the fires every night. Why didn't you ever come get us? And all I could think of is if I were Cillian Murphy, I'd be like, fuck you, man. Why didn't you come get me?
Yeah.
You have this great soundproofed house. I'm in the fucking city.
Yeah.
Like, I really felt like a weird, like, they're kind of mean to him for no reason. Like, there's the idea of it where he's like, oh, you can't stay here or whatever. He's just like, I don't have enough food to feed you.
Right.
Like, if you all stay here, we're going to die, like, or whatever. And, like, they're all just kind of like, they all kind of give him shit for, like, no reason. And
That is kind of something that he has to earn this heroism, which he kind of already just has.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a little cold at the beginning. I mean,
he literally saves your life.
Yeah, and I mean, like, he is scoping y'all out, and I think one of the only reasons he lets them live is because he's like, oh, they figured out a way to stop them. Like, he watches the speaker and the shotgun, all
fact,
that. He's like,
what would have been a better moment, but then again, it's not, because they don't put a nice little cap on it at the end. It's like, maybe you see his hand like go to the trigger because he's like, these people are gonna get me killed. I'm not gonna let. I'm gonna. I'll shoot them. And then like mercy. When he sees them kill the thing, you see his like hand go off it. Off of the trigger or whatever. Yeah, and then like maybe you weave a plot in there to where he's like, where like someone figures out like, oh, he was gonna kill us, and then that makes his redemption at the end when he helps, what's her name, the deaf girl,
the daughter.
Name?
Let me get the character's name.
Yeah, when he helps the daughter at the end,
a lot of people are not saying each other's names
because he hardcore like saves her life like 3-4 times.
Yeah,
like for sure.
Regan.
Okay.
Reagan.
Yeah, when he
like Ronald Reagan, a real American.
But I feel like that would have been a even bigger redemption arc. You could show him lose the things that he loves most, and then you show what the other people in the world make him into, which is like a cold, merciless man. We'll get to it in a second. I know you want to talk about that part.
Well, I think you're right. Like, a really good way to, like, after the intro is to like show like quick clips of the first movie and do what this movie's really good at, which is cause and effect editing. Yeah. Like the I got to give it up to the editors, for this, because like it's so many moments will be like a character in motion cut and it's another character in motion. It's very smart.
Yeah.
And I feel like you could have done that and been like, show all the big heroic, like family saving moments that Krasinski has, and then match them with the moments of Murphy's character losing. And I
don't remember any big family moments from Krasinski.
Well,
though.
just like all the times like Krasinski like is building this thing and all that, or having his family together.
You mean like in the first movie or in the intro of this movie where we see the day one?
Well, I'm thinking like you're talking about.
He doesn't save anybody in the day one.
No, that poor sheriff gets it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like going off your idea of like getting to see of seeing what happened to Cillian Murphy. You see it juxtaposed with Krasinski, because the whole thing is, one of the big leading points is you'll never be like him. You'll never be like him. And you think this is something that threw me for a loop, is like you think the whole thing is about him trying to be that kind of man. And thankfully it's not. It's not that. Because I thought that that's what it was going to be, which would have been really narcissistic of John Krasinski.
I am a hero. Like, I
like,
should be.
Nobody
deified.
will ever be good enough to be me, the new Tom Hanks. I mean, John Krasinski. But it's not. It turns out not to be that, because the film keeps subverting. Because it's smart casting to boo Cillian Murphy, because Cillian Murphy, because he usually plays scumbags.
Yeah, and also
and
I would
he
argue
redeems his scumbag imagery by every time you think he's going to do something really dark and shitty, he is like, no, he's not that guy.
In fact, there's several times where he does like the hardest thing to do. Like he chooses, like, of all the paths of resistance, he chooses like the hardest one. The biggest one, and we're coming a little out of order here, which is fine, but the biggest example of this is when he gets captured by these post-apocalyptic band of thieves and ravagers.
I called them. I wish you would have heard me. I said the swamp people are here.
Yeah,
there's this literal like Resident Evil swamp people.
Yeah,
which he mentions. Like he has this great little bit. Like when they're like, we got to go find more people, and they're like, he essentially is just like,
the other people you don't want to find.
You don't want to. You don't know what's happened to these people, what they've become. But and because immediately when they said that, I just started thinking about The Road. I was like, we got some cannibals out there? Yeah. Probably do.
The Road is much worse than this. Yeah. Like, the people that live in The Road, like, make these people look like nothing, but like...
Well, The Road is hard R. This is a nice PG-13.
This is a soft R. Or is it PG-13?
It's a PG-13, homie. Yeah, no, this movie ain't R-rated at all.
They still could have pushed it a little bit further.
Well, that's PG-13. Well, yeah, and I was thinking that I was like, I sure wish I could see when she's walking around the Metro North vehicle, the train car, and you never see one of these corpses, but you see the corpses.
You see like a hand.
Yeah, and I'm like, that actually is really good. Like I like that, but I still want to see like I want to see a spooky skeleton.
I want to just see like a corpse that's fresh and just has blood on it.
Or like you just see
like
somebody
big, like,
just
big arterial sprays on the wall and stuff. Like
you're like yeah, but that's not this movie. It's a little more pastoral.
I still feel like they had room
decayed.
in that PG-13 to do that, but
well, they had to do it to get the headshots on the monsters because those get really meaty.
The moment
I do love the shot where she gets to the end of it and looks out like the big open, and you just see the derailed vehicles and everything. Yeah, the one thing I'm probably going to end up saying a lot about this is I love the set pieces. Every area they go to gets so much like time.
Yeah.
Like every location gets so much life. Yeah. And I was like, I like that. There's some smart location work in this. Like mostly from Murphy's like hut, like his place, his like all of that is so well thought out and used. That's really good.
Yeah. The moment that I think he actually like kind of does something far more heroic than anything like John Krasinski did is when they trap him on that dock or whatever, and he has the idea that he knows like I can't beat all these people, but I can bring something here that will. And he looks to her and he does this is like it's a great callback, and he does the sign for earlier in the movie. He looks to his son got struck out, or he got struck out, but like he got tagged out at like before he got to home plate.
Right.
And he told him like dive.
Well, he tells the girl like, what's the sign for dive?
And she goes like it looks like kind of like you're diving into a swimming pool.
Right.
And he looks at her and he kind of just really quickly does like that and tells her like dive. Really, and he gets up and sprints to the dude and just wraps the thing around him.
I remember,
and the first thing I could think of is like these people are they're like the silent people. They don't make a noise or whatever. So the first thing he does, which is exactly what I would do, is as he ties him to that post, he gets a knife out and sticks it into his leg.
And that guy
screams. And as he sees the thing, the creature hauling ass, he just like
hops in the water and
off.
just lets it chew him up. It's pretty dope.
Yeah.
But the scary little zombie girl puts a noose around his neck and tricks him. She's a scary little.
That was because I was like, what are they gonna do with that?
What?
I thought that what it was.
They wrapped a noose around him.
Well, I didn't know if it was a noose. I thought what they did is they trapped him on in a trap of a bunch of noisy shit, so that it would just come and kill him. But I think it's just connected to that. Yeah. But
I do love that there's just a spooky little zombie girl that catches him and then she just disappears.
Yeah, like what was that all about?
It was a trick.
She was there and then she's like, how did that girl get by them? And then he's like, I don't know where she is.
Well, I don't know how they all popped out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
That is kind of convenient. It's just that all of a sudden they've always been there, like they're like Navy SEALs.
So are they just waiting for people to come to this?
They're
dock?
Underneath the dock. They're like they crawl out, like because they're swamp people now.
That would have been cooler.
Yeah, they're just like.
This is what I'm saying. Like too subtle for your own good. Like you're in a post-apocalyptic world. You can do kind of whatever you want.
But I think also like going to Krasinski's thing. I think he's not gonna want to lean too much into that cynicism. He doesn't want this to be a kind of cynical sort of thing. So it's like they're just bad people. You know.
Yeah, but bad people could have like cool face paint on, so they blend in with the water or whatever.
Yeah, it's true. They could be using aqua camo. Oh well, that's a great scene though.
It is a great scene
because he
and then there's a great part where you see Cillian Murphy underwater, like looking up at the dude, and it is just like obliterating him.
And eventually you just see that blood hit there, and he's like, "I'm free."
But if he had that knife, why didn't he stick him with the knife, then cut his noose?
Well, he was trying to. Like I saw him with it. He was trying to, but he was like running out of breath. And then when he finally gets up, that's when Reagan's there and pulls him up on the boat.
Did one of those things drown when it tried to jump in the water?
Yes, it did. Yeah, well, that's the thing is like that's why the island works, because we discovered that it's like from the beginning when Reagan discovers like they find a radio station that's playing Beyond the Sea, and she's like she puts two and two together and is just like it's a radio station. I matched the coordinates to here. It's an island. We have to get a boat from somewhere outside because it's like apparently it's supposed to be a day's walk or like a few hours walk from where they are to like the Connecticut Sound, which is pretty wild. It's like that's a long walk. Pretty much go all the way down to Stanford. And she's like, we can get to that island. And we've noticed from the beginning, since the first movie, that water disrupts these creatures' hearing because water muddles sound. And they're completely echolocation based. We get a little more of that, like now that we no longer have to hide them in quiet. This movie has the monsters all over the place, so we get to see them a little more. And even though this design is not my favorite, I kind of like that we're no longer hiding them. We know what the creature is, so we get to see more of like it, like when it's traipsing down all spider-like, it's a little more intimidating.
Yeah,
like they're a little more intimidating now that we know what they're capable of, and we get to see more of how that echolocation sort of thing works in combat with this character who has almost no hearing versus a hyper hearing creature. You know, the dichotomy of that going off against one another is pretty great.
Yeah.
It is stronger in this movie.
Yeah. One thing I think that I would have liked more, or I wish they would have done, is like when that meteor comes down, we talked a little bit about this, like show the impact. And like, people are stupid. Like, people would go to that meteor.
Well, they're already like standing around taking pictures of it in the streets, and I was
I
like,
would have
yeah,
loved
they do
like
that.
if I would have loved if we dragged that out, and maybe not dragged it out, just like edit it in such a way where like we show the police and the firefighter people go to where the meteor lands, and they're just inspecting it and be like, what the hell happened here or whatever. And maybe we see like, I don't know if it's because we don't know.
We don't know. We're not
But
told.
I love that
We're not told.
I love that the movie is like aware enough to be like, where do these things come from? Let's actually answer that question. They come from space.
Yeah,
they're aliens.
They come from space, but we're not going to tell you too much. We're not going to get in the weeds about
I wouldn't
it.
have mind a little too much.
I think they're saving it. I think they're saving it. If this is going to be a quiet universe, a place universe, the Quiet Placeverse, then we're going to get more of like, oh, now because the way the film ends suggests is like, oh, now we have a universal way of fighting them. Now we're going to find out what they're.
Oh, that's so not true though. You got to have a radio handy every time you fight one of these things.
Well, don't you think it's going to end up like the end of Mars Attacks, or they're going to have like radios on trucks going around just playing news? Their heads explode.
Maybe
That's the first thing I thought. I was like,
that'd be
they're
pretty
going to do
disappointing.
Mars Attacks.
Yeah, that'd be pretty disappointing. But the
But it's
big,
practical.
Yeah, the bigger idea though is like, who sent these things? Because it's too.
It's from a bug planet.
Like I hope that we do get to like a big sci-fi type of thing. Like,
I mean, it has to. Once Krasinski doubled down, it's just like, no, it's aliens. Then it's like, all right, well, these came from something.
yeah, I love the idea of like someone like kind of like Frieza sends the Saiyans to wrap up a planet for him. I'd love it if it was like that.
Yeah,
Like,
they're
the real bad guys
they're
come
sent
later.
in to wipe everything out to prepare the way for someone else.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the other,
That actually probably, let's put money down on that.
but then
That's how it's
but
going to
then
be.
it goes full sci-fi. It's
Yeah.
not horror anymore.
Yeah, well then you have to be a sci-fi series, like, because at that point, like, because you've now done a sequel and you've now raised the stakes, but we also know what's capable of defeating them.
Yeah.
It's like aliens.
Now you're now the big bosses who sent these things here and like, they figured it out. God damn it. I guess we got to go there ourselves.
Now it's going to be that really good. What's that really good alien show where all these survivors band together? Spielberg worked on it.
Oh, Falling Skies.
Yeah, Falling Skies was good, dude.
I never saw it. I need to see it.
It's
good.
It's pretty good. My friends got me into it. It's almost been a
It
decade
was on
ago.
like TNT.
Yeah, it was on
too.
TNT. It really holds up. It really, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's a good alien invasion series. That being said,
Would have been great to see like the first one of them come out or whatever. Like it reminds me.
yeah, because we don't get enough time to go down like War of the Worlds style to the impact.
War of the Worlds is actually my recommendation for this week.
Oh, okay,
the
yeah,
Spielberg one.
yeah,
But,
that's a freaking good movie.
But remember we were watching like Army of the Dead, and then I'm not even talking about like the UFOs and all the Easter eggs that we
Because
uncovered.
that's all subtle.
Yeah, I'm talking about like the way they shoot the opening scene, and when the people are on the phone, like, all right, is the payload secure? Like, nope, payload's compromised. Like, get everybody together and get out. And you see the door open, and you see like the hand of the zombie, and it just comes out and wrecks shop. This movie could have used like a one of those.
Like they're right,
Like, when we
some
see
people
the
come down
meteor
and the
hit.
rock just like cracks open, and then just they all just coming out.
Yeah, or something like
Similar.
that. I think would have just like made it all the more dangerous, and then we could have cut back to John Krasinski back at the time, like, oh, all right, guess we're going home.
I see what you mean, because it's kind of like the meteor in terms of the rest of the movie is almost superfluous.
Yeah.
Like it just kind of is just like hints to us where these creatures come from, because it almost has this documentary style where it's like it keeps on Krasinski and it stays far away, and that's kind of the way he's filming it. It almost has this like post found footage kind of vibe to it, because when it attacks, it just hits town.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. There's some really good in-car sequences when she's driving around and that bus starts coming.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It gives me like a car, like a theme park ride vibe. Like when you see that bus coming, get back. I was like, get back. He does love his in-car shots, because it happens later when they meet up with Jimon Honsu.
Yeah. I liked I even liked the fact that one of the car shots, it goes silent to show Reagan's perspective.
Yes,
like when he gets back in the car and he's freaking out, she's like, "What's going on?"
It cuts between those. Really, there's one that's really good, and it happens the second time when Murphy goes to find Reagan at the depot, and he leaves with her implant, and it's just dead silence, and it's desperate dead silence. She has nothing, and she's like, they betrayed me, and falls on the ground. And the moment he comes back and touches her, we're in his sound.
Yeah.
It gets passed off with physical touch with her, and that's really good.
Do you think that
it's
leaving
an improvement on the first one? No. Well, I think that he wanted to prove that, be like, is she right?
Okay.
I think he's the kind of guy who's just like,
because if he was going to leave her, he wouldn't take the implant.
Well, I think he took it to defend himself, and I think probably down the way he tried it out himself and was like, oh, it works. Okay, maybe we can do this.
Okay.
And wasn't expecting her to wake up so soon, and comes back and it's just like, hey, hang on. I'm not an asshole. I know I'm played by Cillian Murphy.
The Scarecrow.
Yeah, I know I'm played by Cillian Murphy, but I'm not an asshole.
Yeah, that was good stuff. That's another thing I thought. That's another little thing that I think like they could have. Maybe it might have been better if he like left and then had to come back. It would make the overarching arc, because at the very end he gets his leg cut open and I'm like, is he gonna die? He might die. Because I don't know, like
a lot of people's legs get harmed in this movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, in the first movie had a lot of foot trauma. I don't know, this movie has a lot of foot trauma too.
A kid steps in a bear trap,
and which is
horrible.
I can't emphasize enough. That's rough. That kid's just like, ah.
He has a delayed reaction too.
Yeah, it's nasty.
Yeah, I feel like
they pour some cheap vodka over that thing too. Yeep.
Yeah,
does the job though.
That can be pretty bad. Oh god.
I love how it's what would have been better if it's like when it shows the vodka. I was like, oh yeah, of course he's been drinking, but it's only like halfway down. I'm like, this is gonna be a little lower.
Yeah.
There's like enough left for that foot.
Also, by the way, don't just pour the whole thing.
Yeah.
You never know when you'll need that again. Just like
put it on a rag, and
if you want to be really smart, cut it with water.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get more out of it and you'll clean the wound. But anyway,
it's more cinematic to pour a bottle of vodka.
I would be a great apocalyptic survivor. I would have the best weapons, the best compound.
I would trust you.
Yeah,
I would trust you. You're somebody I trust. I've had some friends of mine who have had the zombie apocalypse or end of the world discussion. And I'm just like, y'all are gonna turn into tyrants, man. You're gonna turn into the fucking governor. Like, I know a couple of guys who've turned into the governor from Walking Dead pretty fast.
Yeah, I don't know if I would turn into the governor, but like I would have it down to a science, like how to survive it or whatever.
Yeah, I
don't. And I wouldn't be stupid like what's the dude who was like, I thought about this question. Like I think someone asked Henry Cavill or something, how would you survive a zombie apocalypse? He was like, oh, oil rig. No. You'll be stuck there forever. You have to go back. You need to be like, if you go to, yes, the zombies can't follow you, but you're stuck. You're gonna have to go back to get resources.
Well, he read Max Brooks's the zombie survival guide, because I remember reading that one. And it mentions an oil rig is like the best place because zombies can't like swim.
It's the best place if all you want to do is live.
Right.
But if you want to win, like, it's not the best place.
Right. It's a good wait out, and if you know how to fish, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
So she's right. They have to go to a boat.
You have like 1,000-foot-long fishing pole.
Yeah.
Like that's another problem.
Or at least get down there somewhere.
Yeah.
Make like a little like a shimmy like sort of thing they do.
And
with
what
like
if the oil well,
washers?
like, what if it breaks? What if it spills? Like in your
that's what we call irony.
Yeah. I came to this place to survive. Anyway.
That's a Twilight Zone situation where it's like, we can live off the land. Oil bust, all the fish are dead. It's like, we earned this, didn't we?
No.
They make it to the Connecticut side, and they go across this bridge. There's a great like back and forth with the bridge. This part was actually really good, where we can see that Emily Blunt's character leaves the boy with the baby, and it's just like, I'll be back in a couple hours. and she goes to visit the cross one last time and takes her wedding ring off and leaves it there. And I was like, okay,
I was wondering what that was. I assumed it was that, but like I didn't know.
Yeah, they put that there when their son died in the first. That was the exact spot where he got taken.
Yeah.
And so she takes the, says, I'm going to leave this life behind. Doesn't have to say anything, leaves the ring there. And I was like, okay, that's really good. That's really good. And it also creates enough space that you have these 3 plot lines going on, but they're all working off one another really well.
Yeah.
Because they're able to make it across, by they, I mean, Emmett and Reagan get the boat, make it to the island, and it's heaven. It's a haven. Like, everything's great.
I was expecting it to be like you see them on the fire and they're like cooking people. I was expecting it to be like bad.
I can see that.
I'm not saying they should have done it.
That's not this movie.
Yeah.
Again, this is not The Road.
Yeah.
This is John Krasinski's like there's a better America out there.
Yeah.
If we can all just get along, there's a better America out there. If we don't sit around and think too much about the injustices in the world and trust in the CIA, there's a better America out there where we don't need phones and television. We can all sit around and make coffee. Anyway, but they get there and it's a nice little place. And there, Jimon Honson is from New York City, and they're like, when the hurricane alarms went off, we had 12 boats, and everybody panicked because that's what people do. And out of those, it's almost the Jaws speech that Robert Shaw gives, like, there's 7,000 men went in the water, only 340 got out. Just like that.
What is that? What do you mean?
The USS Indianapolis speech that he does in Jaws. It's the best thing in the whole movie outside the shark. Japanese submarine put 2 torpedoes in our side, Chief. I could do the whole part. It's so good. It's the shark's got eyes like a doll's eyes. It rolls back its bitch into. I'll never wear a life jacket again. It's just I watch it every now and then just to get those chills because it's just one of the best monologues, and it's the moment that what's
the story about again? It's like the Indianapolis went down and a bunch of people killed.
It's a true story. In the USS Indianapolis was taking the bomb to drop in Hiroshima to Tinalani, I think was the island outside Wake Island. They were going to send the bomb, and they got torpedoed, and the boat sank. And
sharks ate.
And people. Sharks ate everybody except like 300 people out of like 1,200.
Jesus.
And that really happened. And so Robert Shaw's character Quint is a survivor of that in the movie. And so that's why he has this shark vendetta.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I'll get your shark for you. And that's why he's at like, and so that's also the moment in the boat because they've all been drinking and singing sea shanties and having a good time.
Yeah.
And that's the moment that Richard Dreyfuss looks up at Roy Scheider is like, this guy's crazy. He's Captain Ahab and we're gonna die. Yeah. There's a moment where the music just changes and Spielberg lets you see it. And Richard Dreyfuss looks up at Roy Scheider like, oh, we're not in a good place, are we? And he's like, you don't say it. They just listen to him tell this story. And it's like, this guy's crazy. It's good. It's so good. But he kind of gives like a speech like that, sort of like, it's not a speech, but he's just like, 2 boats made it, 12 boats.
What is he implying happened to the other boats? That the creatures
no one got on board. No one got on board. Everyone was so desperate to get on board that they caused a mass crush, and then the monsters just ate the rest of them.
Oh. And
so only 2 boats got away, and human desperation killed the rest of them.
Oh. How did the rest of those people get to the island then?
They took the boats.
So like only 2 boats full of people have been on this island the whole time?
That's what it seems to be suggesting.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I guess that's what they're suggesting. Because I'm guessing it's like they must have been from like Bronx or something, and we're just like, we got some boats out in the dock out there in the Sound, and only the people from that borough got in those boats, and everyone else got chomped, and they went to that island. Because I mean, it was
a good movie. I was kind of like upset when Jaimun Hutsu got killed because I was like,
yeah, it's not fair.
He was like, I gotta go back for my family,
and I was like, oh yeah, they just didn't know what to do with him. That was definitely like, oh, we introduced this character. I don't know what to do with him. Just kill him. You make him live.
Keep him alive.
Keep him alive. Make him part of the finale. Like, have him give us a heroic sacrifice if he has to.
Yeah.
So they're going to the Radio Shack. And they have a nice time, but one of the boats It's actually a really great scene because he goes out to the beach, like you were saying. He goes out to the beach, and then you hear like the scraping of something, and they were like, "What is it?" And the camera kind of goes over to the side, and you see his reaction first when he realizes one of the boats from the dock has landed on shore. That was really good because I was like, "What is it? What is it?" And then it revealed. I'm like, "Oh fuck!"
Because we don't know. Well, if I were him, I would have done the same thing. But like, we don't know if one of the creatures made it with it. But
Well, we
you
saw it
assume.
on the boat.
Yeah.
Before he got picked up, we saw it on the boat, like look down at his buddy, like, ooh, water didn't work. And it just kind of floats away.
Yeah.
But you don't think about it. You're like, oh, okay, that's the end of that set piece. And it follows them, which is that's really smart. It's very clever.
Yeah.
And it starts wreaking havoc.
So only one got to that island then. So they kill the only one on that island.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there was
Yeah,
only
that
one
checks
that got
out.
on
Okay,
island.
I'm just making
Yeah,
sure.
the only one got on island. That was enough to like wipe a bunch of people out. They put the children in the closet. This one, the white kid actor just has the most just like dead face. Like it's like a 5-year-old boy, but he's doing some terrible acting because he's just sitting there just like, and then it's just like, I had to laugh. I was like, that kid's feeling nothing. That kid's got nothing going on there. And they make it to the Radio Shack, and Hansu gets killed.
Yeah.
Sucks. But then it becomes very similar to, of all things, it reminded me of Jurassic Park: The Lost World. Do you remember?
I thought you were saying Jurassic Park, where they're trapped with the raptors. I was like, yes.
Yes, it's that, but that gets replayed in the second movie at the end of the island arc where they go to the
radio tower.
It reminded me of that,
All right.
except better. This is way better than that, obviously. Because guess what this actress doesn't have to do? Terrible gymnastics to kick a velociraptor out a window. Because it's stupid.
I forgot about that part.
I'll never forget about that. That's dumb. And you know, and meanwhile, like we're cutting back to everybody before, like and this is something on Emily Blunt. I was sitting there the whole time. She uses one of the gas canisters. She goes get air. She goes get air and like things from town and all that. Get the canisters of air. And the boy doesn't realize he's out of air, and so they get stuck and they're running out of air. So you got all these like things, because one of the things that keeps coming up with the son is deep breaths. You notice that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this plays back into it because he's giving up his own breath to save the baby. Deep breaths, deep breaths. I was like, I caught that.
But he takes the kid's oxygen. I thought he was going to kill the kid.
No, it's the opposite.
I know
dude.
it's not that kind of movie, but when he took the thing off, I was like, he's going to let this kid die. I was like, oh,
He's
no.
putting his own air into it and giving it to him.
That's not how. What do you mean?
You're right. That's not what happened.
He would breathe out. He would breathe out the carbon dioxide. If anything, he would be killing the kid quicker.
Oh, you're right. No, they're sharing it. They're sharing it. That's right. He's taking a little bit and giving more to the baby. I was like, it's not, Matt. It's not like a baby bird. It's not like a baby bird with food. He is. You breathe out. I was not thinking all the way through, and I was like, oh, he's putting his air in to give to the baby, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what happens. You give carbon dioxide.
Yeah. The smartest way to survive a situation like that is to lie down, remain calm, and just go and just like take long breaths.
But that's kind of been the running theme of the son, is that he has a hard time being calm. He kind of has he's very anxious. He seems to have some kind of neurodivergent sort of personality and is very kind of wiry and is like panicky, and he's trying to overcome it.
And again, he did get his foot.
Yeah, he got his foot gnarled.
I'd be pretty panicky too.
But so Emily Blunt comes back and she action movie blows one of these things up with that revolver and the gas tank. And it's pretty good. Like it's a good earned explosion, but it affects that thing in no way whatsoever. The sprinkler system comes on. And this is one thing where I was like, Emily Blunt, you need to just walk up to that thing and shoot it in the head. You need to do a stealth kill. I think I turned to you and I said, stealth kill.
That's what I thought was going to happen.
No, she doesn't. She kill it.
When it breathes, you can see its flesh.
Yeah,
So I was just like, you don't even necessarily need to have your little feedback loop to make that happen. No. You could just like be careful and just bam. Like,
just get it point blank.
Yeah.
She should have just came up there and just point blanked it. Like I don't
have gotten that close because I wouldn't trust myself.
Because the water, continuously the water affects it.
Yeah.
And so I think she should just come up and just and put it down out of his misery, because that thing ends up chasing him to the end, and it throws that baby's basket like nothing, just like yoink. And you're just like, ooh, that would have been bad if that baby was in there.
Yeah.
Our hero saved the day.
Yeah.
She gets the radio thing in there.
She points it at the wrong part of the capsule of the mic.
Yes.
It would be the equivalent of like if she did it if this was the cochlear implant. I've heard she did this because it's not picking up sound from that place. Like this mic picks up sound from right here,
right there,
and not here,
right where I'm speaking.
Yes, that's.
But if I
mics
did it
work.
over here,
you'll get a little proximity of it or whatever. But like that's just how mics work.
And it's also a nice dual imagery because the son is able to pick up the receiver that Reagan's putting out. Reagan's able to walk up to the thing with the speaker. Well, no, she doesn't even have to hold it because she's in the radio station. She's just looking at it, just like, you motherfucker. And he takes this little thing and he grabs that pistol, and I'm just like,
yeah.
Oh, and then she picks up the nearest blunt object. And they just massacre these creatures.
I didn't think that was gonna work.
I was
blunt object. I was like, that's like killing a person with a blunt object.
She Silent Hills this thing. Well, I think it had a sharp end, but she just like caves this thing's head in.
Yeah.
And I like the shot. Like you see her do it, and then it cuts back to him, and he's already fired the shot.
Yeah. I like that too.
And I was like, okay, that's more of this really good dual editing that Krasinski and company are good at.
Quick nitpick: Beyond the Sea is on a vinyl playing on rotation. That vinyl would go out eventually.
Yeah,
vinyl is finite.
Yeah, well, and also like it would end and have to be replaced.
You don't have an iPod? Just put it on iPod loop. Anyway, doesn't matter.
It's more cool when it's a record.
Is it? That's the most hipster thing you've ever said.
It's more cool if it's a vinyl.
It's on vinyl. It's the coolest thing. Anyway.
And then the movie ends right there.
It ends very abruptly.
And I think that comes back to what you were saying about some things not getting a pin in them.
Yeah.
Is because the movie literally just ends.
We don't know if Cillian Murphy will survive.
No, he's going to be okay.
I assume
he's going to be okay. Yeah,
like,
because camera cuts back to him like, oh, wow. Like
that leg gets pretty mangled. I was like, Jesus Christ, that's a lot of blood.
Well, also, Emily Blunt's leg gets sliced by the creature's leg, and she lets out a good there's some good screams in this movie when people are allowed to, because I think it's earned because it's so quiet the rest of the time, and so when someone screams, it's like it better mean something. That better hurt.
Yeah.
And everything I've seen so far hurts.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to get my leg stabbed by one of these things.
No.
I just remember like I remember the sound of the sheriff getting murdered as John Krasinski just as soon as the sheriff sees John Krasinski go behind the car. If I was the sheriff, I'd be like, oh, I get it. It's not going to work.
Right. I got to get by the car. Oh, well. Anyway. So the movie ends there, leaving us open with hope. It's a hope spot. But it also is very, I'm going to have to look into what the symbology is, because the imagery is like the future, but also the future kills the creature with violent intent. And I think it's because I just watched Starship Troopers again recently, that I was kind of like,
that's a good movie.
It's a great movie. I was like, is this propaganda? Is this like the young will succeed through blunt force trauma and shooting something in the head?
Well,
I always find the imagery of violence with swelling like heroic music to be very hilarious, because it's discordant to me.
Sometimes I think, and this one it works because these creatures just don't. If they don't eat people, they're killing for pleasure.
Right, they suck. They're bad things. They don't represent anything.
Yeah.
They're not like.
Which is why I think what would have been the ultimate power play is do a post credit scene where the
mothership.
You go to the mothership and you see them and be like.
It's personal.
I'd love to see what kind of creatures create something like this or whatever, and like what kind of alien civilization would use this for. Mm-hmm. Because it's got to be just like destruction. Yeah, that's all they do.
It's got to be a drop off kill zone. Like it's a mop up crew. But
yeah,
A Quiet Place Part 2. I liked it a lot.
Me too.
I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot more than the first one.
A lot of people are saying it's not as good as the first one, and I'm like, isn't it? Isn't it? I think it's kind of
even
a little better.
Even if you really liked the first one, it's not any less of the original either. It's just an extension. Where I'll give A Quiet Place its due, the first one, this movie only succeeds on that. There's really, in my opinion, even though I don't care for A Quiet Place, they're almost equal in quality. There's not, this is a beautifully shot movie. It's incredibly well edited. it's paced very nicely. It's not too long. It's not. Oh, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's very good beat to beat. As I mentioned, the set pieces are really good. All the action is very condensed. There's not a lot of exposition. Like, what's people's problem? Like, if you love the first one, all this is almost like an equal. Like, if you were doing the less than or greater sign, this is just an equal sign. It's just a pure continuance of the last one.
I think in a lot of ways it's better. Now, it can't exist without the first one,
right?
Or whatever.
Like, if you want to make a Quiet Place day, both these movies would be really good back to back. I think. I like if you really want to go double down on A Quiet Place, I think these movies really, one flows right into the other really just fine. You could take out the introductory part of part 2 and put it at the beginning of part 1.
Yeah.
And then you just move smoothly in between the two. And but that's like I've mostly seen people say good things about this. Yeah, but it's also dealing with the whole like everyone's like, well, there are all these movies out right now. We're going back into theaters. This is the first, this is our first, I think, podcast since COVID restrictions have really started to lay off.
Yeah,
numbers are down dramatically. Vaccines are up. Like this is
our last a couple episodes were all stuff that we had kind of watched.
By ourselves,
by ourselves, or like on HBO Max, in an environment where we didn't have to go out. So
right, and so, I think because a lot of people are going to see other things like The Conjuring. The devil made me do it, and the devil would have to make me go watch that movie.
Those people are like giant frauds, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, also they double down in this one because it's like I like The Conjuring. The first movie's fine.
I remember watching it and being weirdly underwhelmed.
I really liked it. I think
it's because
really
it's like
creepy.
a PG-13 thing.
It's R.
Is it?
It's R. That first one's R.
Okay.
They might have leaned it down in the latter ones, but the first one's R.
There's so many ghosts in that franchise.
Well, it's all Blumhouse.
Like I
it's
said,
all it's all Lee Wannell and James Wan. Like
I remember,
because they also did Insidious.
I have such I'm a weird horror snob. I like 5 movies. Horror movies have to scare the shit out of me.
There might only be 5 good horror movies, and I love horror. I'm a huge horror head, but there's probably only 5
that. Like
good
I like
ones.
I like the Invisible Man and stuff, but like when it comes to horror movies or whatever, they have to nail it.
Well, on that note,
I judge everything by
do
Hereditary.
you see these movies as horror movies? I'm talking about A Quiet Place. Is this a horror movie or is it a thriller?
The first one is
because there's a few moments that got me, like a few jump moments, but it's not a scare thing.
The first,
if anything, I reacted mostly to violence that happened to people, but not from the monsters.
The first movie is more of a horror movie. This one's more of like a thriller.
Yeah,
I care more about the characters in this than I do like the scenario.
Well, that's the thing. Like again, Krasinski, and I want to go back to what I said at the beginning about Krasinski's patriotism.
Yeah.
And how I feel like that's kind of the language of his cinema now. And this is just one movie example. But
also, it's worth pointing out Krasinski has made other movies that are just like don't have any of this.
What else has he done?
He did the one with him and it's like the Come Walk With Me. It's a sad romantic dramedy thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming there's not like a big patriotist angle to that.
Well, the thing is, like what I really love about this movie and what really stood out to me and it made me smile throughout is all of these very loving, wide, emotional shots of rural America. Like it
has small towny vibes.
Yeah, it's pastoral. Like it's one of the better like post-apocalyptic countrysides I've ever seen in a movie. Yeah. Like it really stands out to me. Like I think only
I mean even those post-apocalyptic shots, it's almost like he's saying like this world is still worth saving.
Yeah, like
but in a not so cynical way, I guess.
Yeah, it's not as reactionary I feel as the first one gave me the vibes of, because again, the easy thing to do is like, Everett, is that his name? Emmett's whole thing could be like, you're right, I'm not your father, but I can be your father. I can be the man that Lee was. John Krasinski, CIA. And instead it's like, no, I'm not that guy. I'm good, but I'm not that guy. You are. Yeah. And he's talking to the daughter, like, you're that kind of person. And that's really wholesome, and that's really sweet.
I think
and
John
I thought
Krasinski
that was good.
Cares too much about making a good movie
Yeah.
to fall into that trap.
And I can see that now through this movie.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, all right, this really. As I was watching it, I was like, okay, Krasinski, this is a good one.
Like if
this is good.
it's like I don't think John Krasinski would watch a Kirk Cameron film and be like, this guy has got a lot of good points.
No,
Like,
he's
like,
no.
like, he
The same with Chris Pratt. I don't see Chris Pratt doing pure flicks
yeah.
unless he ends up becoming a Kirk Cameron in the next.
There's like two kinds of Hollywood conservatives.
20 years.
There's two kinds of Hollywood conservatives. There's like Ben Shapiro types who are like, we're persecuted from Hollywood
James
because they
Wood.
just don't like us or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like no,
John
they don't
Voight,
like.
James
Yeah,
Wood.
you say things that people don't like and you get in trouble for it. It's kind of how it works,
Or you
But-
get like kind of quiet, just like
Mel Gibson is probably I don't know about his politics. I know about his religious kind of views or whatever, but I imagine he's really conservative. But Mel Gibson also makes movies that like fuck. Those movies are good. Apocalypto is one of the best movies you'll ever fucking see.
I did watch. I watched Passion of the Christ for the first time.
It's still
couple
good.
months
It's
ago.
a good movie, even if you don't believe in it.
It's wild.
Yeah.
It's a wild film. I was in Christian school when that movie came out, and I avoided it.
It's amazing how good it is, and it doesn't come across as propagandist.
I disagree.
Really?
I think it really does.
That's to be seen.
We could have that discussion another time.
Oh, is it because like the people that kill him are like dirty looking?
they're all cartoon
Hook-nosed.
monsters?
A little bit.
They're all
But,
cartoon
like,
monsters.
Aside from that, I just felt like this is what you would have to look at the story like if you believed in it.
Yeah.
Like that's sort of how I looked at it. Like it's sort of like I look at it like if the Passion of the Christ is propaganda, then Lord of the Rings is propaganda for mythology that doesn't exist or whatever. So I kind of looked at it like that because like technically like you look at the orcs and they're all gross and mean and ugly looking or whatever, but like the Pharisees and Passion of the Christ look like kind of look like cartoonish bad guy villains or whatever.
Exactly.
Yes,
They are that
But
because
you
it's
would- if-
wildly anti-Semitic.
but if you did believe that, I would be like, this is still
well, the hope is that most people watching this movie are not, Mel Gibson's level of anti-Semitic blood libel Christians. They're like, hey, that really white-looking guy that's on the cross was also Jewish.
Yeah.
And was just like, hey, it's about power. It's
But
about
they do call him like a rabbi or whatever.
yeah, because he's called that in the book.
Yeah.
But as long as he looks like Jim Caviezel, the most Italian rabbi,
Yeah. That is weird that he was chosen for that movie.
it's not weird. Look at him now. Caviezel's gone off the deep end a little bit.
Has he?
Oh yeah, he's gotten really right wingy.
Oh no.
Yeah, he's starting to do some like propaganda stuff. Like I think Caviezel's all in, man.
I used to love him.
Yeah.
I mean, I still kind of do because I haven't
He's
seen anything
fine.
yet. I probably just won't. I love Count of Monte Cristo. It's a great
Well,
movie.
it's just like I think about talk about scumbag guys like James Woods, but James Woods is a really good actor.
Hercules.
Oh, that's yeah. But he's a really good actor. He's
I
just a
know.
bad person.
Yeah. But the other kind of conservatives are people like
Chris Pratt
or like Dennis Leary or like some of those people who are probably conservative-ish, but like they don't
or
care
libertarian.
But they don't care about like gay people getting married or whatever, and they realize they're smart enough to be able to look at content and be like, well, that's bad. I don't want to make anything like that or whatever. Like Chris Pratt would look at a movie like I don't know, what is that? Like that Ben Shapiro school shooter flick and be like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to do this. Ugh.
Well, also you can't afford Chris Pratt.
Did that too.
But Chris,
like,
but Chris Pratt will play your CIA agent and be like, those guys go out there saving the day every day.
But to be fair, a lot of those roles have been around for forever. We've
Yes,
always
they
had
have.
we've always had
We've
big
always-
butch white action heroes.
We've always had.
who are ex special forces or
Yeah.
ex FBI.
I guess
or CIA
there's
or
a difference.
whatever.
There's a difference between like the character that Arnold Schwarzenegger plays,
And like Commando
or
whatever.
versus like Commando, or versus like the character of Jack Ryan.
Yeah.
Where it's like
And also
I'm just a good old regular guy who stands up against
who's
all of our evils.
Who's 7 feet tall and can break a man's neck with one hand or whatever. Like,
but he also looks real sharp in a tie, and he's a doctor.
yeah, and like the difference is we know more about the CIA now. That's honestly that's the big operating
It's like,
factor.
I was like, all right, no, Jack Ryan's leading like death squads in Honduras. Like,
And this is why we like. This is why the idea of movies that are like Metal Gear Solids or something like that kind of, and also Metal Gear Solid creates whole new histories or whatever. But like,
right.
we look at movies,
but also it's very judgmental of
it's critical of history,
imperialism and
Yeah,
history.
and like so, like it looks like, and it has like big moral gray areas. Where at the end of Snake Eater, what was the name of his
the boss.
No, that's Big Boss or whatever. But like the lady that
The
trains
boss.
him. The boss.
Yeah, she's the boss, and so
And
when
she
he kills her, Lyndon Johnson says, "You're now big boss."
Yeah, but like when she dies disgracing herself to her country in like a very honorable way, and it's very much like, like the greatest hero in the world could be seen as the greatest villain, all for optics reasons or whatever. It has nuance, whereas a movie like Jack Ryan or whatever.
Well, that's
kind of like,
going into the Metal Gear Solid. I mean, that's why Big Boss eventually creates Outer Heaven. Is like, I want to create a nation for soldiers who don't have to fight because one flag changes over their shadow.
Yeah.
They get to choose.
or like Raiden is like an ex-child soldier from like Rhodesia or something.
Yeah, he was sent in by Solidus to slaughter people as a.
So like it's
But
self-aware.
his whole arc is to free himself from the confines of controls that are using him to kill.
Yeah, and the whole.
But
like,
eventually he ends up becoming a cyborg ninja, and it's really stupid. Except it's really awesome.
that game
but it
that game
underdoes.
doesn't make sense, but like it's cool.
Yeah, Rising is amazing, but it underdoes everything that's so great about Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah.
Which is a masterpiece.
And like nowadays, when we watch like action suspense thrillers, like a good one is like Gemini Man. That's all about politics and like, is this right or is this wrong? Nowadays, like the idea of doing a movie like a Commando or something would feel laughable.
Well, that's why you can do like Fast and the Furious, because it's almost a cartoon.
Yeah.
Like it literally is now. Like
Yeah,
they're
now
going
it is.
to space. But our action movies have to be like Marvel. They have to be like where you can have a movie like Winter Soldier where like it's a espionage, where our government is compromised, but it's not our government. It's a fake version of our government that is taken over by a fake version of the Nazis.
Yeah.
But it's not, because it's in a fantasy world.
Yeah, like you get two kinds of thrillers
Yeah.
that I think
'Cause-
work.
Yeah,
And
because
this-
it
and
works in the world, but it is symbolic of nothing.
There's the unironic ones, which are like the Jack Ryans, which
Right.
seem. And I haven't watched the Amazon Jack Ryan. I'm sure it's.
I'm sure it's
probably-
great. I've heard it's good,
it
but
looked like-
also it's problematic because it's like, you know what? Tortures him good. John Krasinski knows how to torture him good.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it just
But like
kind
John
of bugs
Krasinski,
me.
but like the people who work on those shows aren't. Who wrote Jack Ryan? Is it Tom Clancy?
Tom Clancy wrote it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who also did Splinter Cell, which is a game that I really like or whatever.
Yeah, Rainbow Six.
Yeah. So
but
like-
it's all about how spec forces are awesome.
Yeah.
And that's like not always.
My approach to like
Man-hated.
military fiction or whatever is like it's more. You should keep it morally neutral, and you use the external factors to judge it or whatever.
Well, it's
But,
like I watched.
Tom Clancy isn't writing this show. There are other.
Well, no, he's
people,
been dead for 5 years.
Yeah,
But
there are other people who care about it and are writing and want to make something good that people like.
Right.
So like you can kind
well,
of.
there's a really good video you should check out called by this guy Jacob Geller, who I really enjoy on YouTube. He's one of my favorite dudes.
I think you mentioned this to me, but keep going.
He has a video of does the Call of Duty what is Call of Duty about? Does it believe anything? And it argues in the movie from the text of interviews of the creators that it's like no,
In the movie?
the games. Sorry, we're just talking about movies.
Okay, go ahead.
That the games actually do believe something, which is that they believe in like unregulated military power over the bad guys in any way possible, even if torture or things like that have to be involved, even though they say no, it's not about that. It's like, no, evidence shows it is. It's a good video to kind of take a look at that
I'll
kind of
check
gets
that
at what
out.
we're talking about.
But I also kind of
And I also want to say sorry that it kind of went off into this
it's fine.
talking about Krasinski, because like
it's our podcast. We can just
it's
talk
our
about whatever we want.
podcast, and it's also like it should be noted in his oeuvre, because it's like I really like this movie, A Quiet Place Part 2.
Sure.
And
The
I think
guy-
I'm
the
gonna
guy who
keep
made-
liking
The
it.
guy who made Bone Tomahawk is like a conservative. And I think
Yeah.
and I think that's a great movie. And by the way, Zack Snyder, to bring it back to the patron
He's a
saint of the
libertarian.
podcast. Well, no, he's not. He's quite liberal,
yeah.
or whatever. But people often smear
Mistake
his
him
movies
for
as
being-
like they're conservative movies. He goes, no. Like I don't. When I create a world, I'm morally neutral. I don't say this is good or this is bad. You infer that from your actions and your own perspective. Now, I think he's kind of bullshitting there, because I think the symbolism and the stuff that he puts in there are very obvious. When Superman blows up the drone at the beginning of Batman v Superman, he's very clearly saying America should not drone people.
Right.
Which is why my proxy for America just blew up that drone.
thing, yeah.
Or whatever. Or America should save, immigrants and burning buildings, which is what Superman. So like, I don't think it's that hard. So when I hear people say things like, "Oh, he's like a right-wing objectivist Superman," I'm like, not really. Not if you really look at it.
No, there's a series we could talk about where there's definitely a right-wing objectivist villain, and
Or is this Invincible?
Yeah,
Okay,
where I've seen a lot of people being like, "Hey, that character's really cool," and I'm like, "You really shouldn't be thinking that."
Yeah. Oh, like Omni-Man?
Yeah.
You shouldn't think Omni-Man is cool.
There are people who think he's really cool. And
Really?
it's like,
Or
that
is
sucks,
it just
bro.
because they like how like amped up the action is?
Maybe we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. We'll save that for a discussion about
Yeah.
Amazon's Invincible.
But no, I think John Krasinski, this might be the best thing he's done so far. And like I
I think
think
it's really good. I am actually very excited for what he's going to do next.
I'm excited for,
because he's
like-
got a great cinematic language. Like he's very good at this.
I'm excited to see like what the part 3 is going to be.
Yeah.
What if the part 3 doesn't even have these characters in it?
I think that's probably what they're going to end up doing. Like
it's
I
just,
think
like,
whatever
create
they're going to
new
give Jeff
characters in
Nichols,
that
like
world.
yeah, they're going to give Jeff Nichols carte blanche and say, "You've got the whole country. You could set it in Arkansas if you want. You could set it in Ohio.
Better set it in Arkansas.
He might set it in Arkansas. He could. He loves doing that. But I think
I mean, we're told that this is like the Appalachians, but could be any Midwestern place, really.
what in this movie?
Yeah.
Well, no, it's New York.
Is it?
Yeah, I mentioned it a couple of times. They go to Connecticut.
But is it? Do we know it's Connecticut?
It's on the map.
Whatever, Matt.
There's a map, and I
Keep
saw.
going.
Well, at first I was looking around, and it said there was a couple license plates that had New York. When she rolls out the map and points out the dock, it's Stanford's right there, and I was like, oh, that's Connecticcut.
Okay.
And they're up like
That's not small town.
well,
The
they're
coasts
not in,
don't
they're
count.
not in
No.
Stanford. He mentions like south of the Adirondacks. I think he either mentions the Adirondacks or the
Appalachian Mountains for sure.
it's not the Appalachians. The Appalachians is south.
But he said that.
No, he said the
I heard him say Appalachians
it does go up that high.
at some point. Yeah.
It's the northernmost, but they're definitely in New England.
Yeah.
Because they mentioned coming from the city, and I'm like, oh, they came from New York City.
Yeah. What would the cities look like? Imagine like New York City.
It would be a bloodbath.
But how many of? Here's another question that we leave vague, which is probably for the best. How many of these things are there?
I don't know.
We saw the thing.
One landed in Shanghai.
We did it, or was that just like a misdirect? It's sort of like because we don't know like it said like
Conspiracy.
there's power outages or whatever.
No, it said a bomb went off.
Yeah.
Because the old guy said there's like a bomb went off in China, and it cuts in and says Shanghai scores dead.
But then he goes like or something.
right, but because we know it's not a bomb because we're watching A Quiet Place. Krasinski's not going to automatically be like, oh, it's a secretly Jack Ryan movie.
So how do we like that's the thing like how many of these things are there?
We don't know.
If there's like a
We don't even know if they're in from the meteor.
if there's
Maybe it's a
if
coincidence.
there's thousands of them, it's just like there's no way to beat them.
Yeah. If it turns into Starship Troopers, like it's a bug planet.
At some point, you're gonna have to find a
bug
way to beat them. That you can't beat them without talking about some sort of large scale military operation.
If there is a large scale military left,
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the guns are there
Right.
somewhere. So like
and
you
the guns
find them.
work.
Yeah,
If they're shot right.
yeah. So like anyway, I would be very interested to see like a more like leaning a little bit further into the sci-fi of it all. Like where do these things come from? What are they doing? I have a feeling
think
Jeff
you're-
Nichols might be the wrong guy for that because he's going to be like, I don't care about any of that. Like
Well, I mean, he likes sci-fi stuff.
he does,
like-
but he's a very subtle guy and he's not
Right.
going to answer those questions.
Well, I think that's kind of what Krasinski's saying about this series, why he would look at someone like Nichols and be like, you're the guy I want because you're that pastoral filmmaker. You're kind of Terrence Malick type.
That's true.
I want this to be, again, he's got this love of the American landscape, and it's beautiful in this movie. And I think that's what he wants to emphasize is like, I want to emphasize rustic beauty matched with decay and horror,
Yeah.
but not too decayed and not too horrific. Because I want this movie to be,
I want to be able to make $150 million
right
on this.
again, he's not making Feast, like people are not getting their heads eaten off and like standing and like wiggling as blood squirts out. Like
Okay. Do you want to talk about recommendations real quick?
yeah, let's go ahead and do that. You go ahead and start because you
Yeah.
mentioned yours.
Yeah,
I
so
got one though,
I
which is actually the beginning of this movie reminds me of this movie.
very much so.
Of the movie I'm recommending.
Oh, okay. Well, mine too, a little bit. But like, I recently rewatched Spielberg's War of the Worlds,
Oh yes.
and the first thing I always forget about this movie. This movie gets slept on.
Yes, it does.
And I didn't quite know why until I got to like the last 40 minutes of the movie, and I was like, oh yeah, that's why. gets kind of slow and boring. But like, but it's worth saying the opening hour of this movie is so fucking good.
It's so intense.
Yeah. And like even like the parts of it that I was like the visual effects that don't quite hold up very good in the movie, because this was made back when computers like were big and boxy and stuff. But like the visual
this was made like 2005.
This movie came out
2005.
This movie came out 2005. So
yeah, so like he had already worked on like AI and of course Jurassic Lost World,
and
like,
yet
stuff
for
like
some
that.
reason the VFX don't hold up in this nearly as well as they do in AI or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know why it is, but they just don't.
It's probably made on a cheaper budget.
But I did think that when I was watching this movie, I was like, God, like that opening is so
Of Tom Cruise running
fucking
around
good.
the streets and
That
everything
too,
building up.
even not even that. I mean, just like he leaves the shipping container yard, goes to his house, and Miranda Otto's there with her new husband, and there's like the passive aggressiveness, and the kids don't talk to him very much, and
of course
they have
it's-
that. They play catch, and
It's Dakota
Justin-
Fanning.
Yeah, and Justin Chatwin hates him or whatever, and like
That's right, Justin Chatwin's in this.
yeah, and like it's even that stuff's really good. And then like the lightning storm just starts and it just keeps coming down.
It's really spooky.
It
Like,
is.
It feels very apocalyptic.
It makes me miss this kind of Spielberg because he
Yeah.
doesn't make movies like this anymore. He makes movies about news or something.
Well, that's fine.
It's
more
fine.
like he doesn't need to be making movies like Ready Player One. Like,
I kind of wish he would. 'Cause
well, I mean,
I have a bigger stake in movies like that than like what was the news?
The Post.
Is that what it was?
The Post,
With
yeah.
Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
he just made the Post just like I just want to make the movie about this, and it was great. Like it was just like
I'm sure they are good.
because his thing is like he'll do a big box office tent pole
Will
and
he?
then like make like a little thing on the side.
No, he makes 11 little things and then eventually we'll make a blockbuster.
That's true.
I want to get it back to like around there. Just because like this is the kind of Spielberg that like when you said you watched like Poltergeist, you're like I swear to God Spielberg shot that movie, which is half true apparently.
Half true, yeah.
But like or like watching a movie like
No hate to Tobe Hooper, you know.
no,
rest
of
in
course.
peace,
But like we watch a movie like Jaws, or you watch a movie like Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
or you watch a movie
It's
like
spectacles.
AI,
Yeah, these
or
big
Minority Report, like
or,
these
or
movies.
Close Encounters.
Yes, like there's a part of him that loved genre filmmaking.
Yeah,
and
he's one of the
and
best.
he got away from it, and I want him to go back. like,
well,
the
it's
beginning
kind
this
of like one
movie
of my
is-
favorite Spielberg movies is Munich, which if you take the politics out of it, which is impossible,
Yeah.
it is one of the best spy thrillers of ever made.
Munich. I haven't seen it in so long. I remember liking it and being ignorant of its politics.
It's
And
fucking dope.
then I watched it, and I was like, well, how much of this is true though? And like, I don't know Spielberg's opinion on Israel and Palestine.
Zionism and things like that.
I can infer a few things from Munich. I have a very, very hard time imagining him giving like some sort of Netanyahu speech.
No, definitely not. But 'cause
I
there's that
imagine-
scene. There's that scene near the end of it when Eric Bana and the rest of them meet up with the members of like various PLO groups and they all
Before they have that big shootout.
right, and
Yeah.
they're all hanging out like chatting and everything and like sharing cigarettes and everything, and it's like they're all just soldiers of fortune, you know. But
There's a
we'll get back to War of the
there
Worlds.
is a line in that movie that I think is the one of the more telling ones, which is where Eric Bana tells the Palestinian guy, he's like, fuck you, and he goes like, you kill Jews and the world feels bad for them or whatever. It's a weirdly self-aware line, and I can infer a few things from that, which is he knows like the conflict in Israel and Palestine is very out of balance, but also the Jews have a long history of suffering. So like,
it's the bit where they have the actress who plays Golda Meir, and it's afterwards, and she's like going to give the operation for Wrath of God, and it's just like they're like telling her we can't react, and she's like, you know, what do you want me to tell you? It's so and so. It's 1977, and there are dead Jews in Germany.
yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, okay, that movie's dope.
Yeah, I need to watch that movie again and like really like knowing what
It's
I know.
just brutal too. It's probably the most violent Spielberg movie ever made.
Hardcore
Like,
for sure.
the-
It's right up
the-
there with Saving Private Ryan.
The guns that go off, like I feel like he put like light bulbs behind every shot because they're so percussive and so devastating. Like
Yeah.
it's a gruesome film.
The part where they kill
The assassin.
well, they killed the lady. Yeah, that's
what I mean.
In its own way, that's like brutal. But like they kill the first guy who has his groceries.
yes,
And I was
and the
like-
blood and the milk
Or even like
come
the
together.
murder of the wrestlers. Like there's one where a guy gets shot through the cheek.
Yeah,
or something.
and the way it's filmed is so like almost way too realistic.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'd hate to really imagine Spielberg making a propaganda movie.
Well, it doesn't really.
I don't know if it ever gets to that point with that movie, but I am like.
Well, Bana's character feels entirely just like
horrified.
Like he has.
And he becomes a paranoid lunatic by the end of it, where he's cutting open his mattress and stuff.
It becomes like the conversation. There's that weird shot at the end when he meets up with Daniel
Craig, Kieran Hines. I don't know.
Barbosa.
Jeffrey Rush.
Yeah. He meets up Jeffrey Rush at the end, and it cuts. The camera lingers on the World Trade Centers, and it's kind of like, all right, I get it.
I'd have to watch it again.
It's the last shot in the film.
Yeah, there are better movies about the Middle Eastern conflict than
this one. Yeah, but
I would argue
really
Kingdom of Heaven might be a better one, but not the same genre necessarily. But
everything. Anyway. So World of Worlds.
Yeah, World of Worlds,
which is also very heavily post 9/11 inspired.
Yeah,
like it definitely has
the wall of ashes.
Yeah,
except they're ashes of literal people. Like. It's that whole opening is harrowing. Mm-hmm. Even like when the lightning's coming down and all the cars stop and like, God, if that happened to me, like even his watch stops. I remember that. I was like, if that happened, I would be like, something is horribly wrong.
Right. Versus like,
do you know how
in A Quiet Place when the meteor is coming down? Like, I feel like you're saying like this should be a little more
like
impactful,
this.
like
we're
that.
Like, because people are nosy fuckers. Like as soon as something like that happens, like they all go to the crater and Tom Cruise picks up a rock.
They're getting them on TikTok.
Yeah,
they're TikToking that asteroid.
He picks it up and he goes, "Is it hot?" And he goes, "No, it's freezing. It's like it's ice cold." And like they come down through the lightning bolts and that shot where the ground swells up and then sinks down again and the tripod rises
it's like
up.
The ground is breathing.
And they're just sitting there. As soon as that thing comes out, the tripod, I'm like, and I'm gone. I'm leaving. Like this thing is not. This thing has. There's no way something like that comes out of the ground and has like good intent.
No.
There's no way.
And the Martians from War of the Worlds are notoriously like one of fiction's greatest psychopath monsters.
Yeah.
Like they have no intention other than to destroy.
Yeah, and like the weaponry as well, like these little prismatic beams that just there's a great shot where a woman's running and it strikes and she turns to dust as she screams and you see the outline of her
and the clothes
face.
Just float by.
Yeah.
Oh, that was one thing I in A Quiet Place I noticed, like when she goes by the station, it's just high heels everywhere.
I didn't get that.
You didn't see that?
Well, no, I saw that. I didn't understand like what's up with all the high heels.
I think it's weird.
We're
like,
a bunch of supermodels.
Yeah,
at the station.
I was like, was everyone voguing? Like, was everyone like, because they're taking the train, the Metro North system in like Connecticut, that's to take people to New York City.
I guess
because a lot of people live outside. So I was like, were these all business people who are like get their heels on and everything, getting ready to go?
I feel like heels aren't that common.
Yeah, and it's nothing but heels. It's weird.
But I think one of my favorite parts of War of the Worlds, there's a couple of them. One, it's when Tom Cruise kills Tim Robbins. It's like you don't see anything happen. He just shuts the door, and you just hear him scream in the struggle, and then he comes out, and he's just like he looks exhausted, like he just had to kill a man. My favorite part is
which I hope Tom Cruise doesn't know what that's actually like, but I'm not going to put it past him.
Tom Cruise doesn't want to kill a man; he wants to kill himself. Every time a
Mission Impossible comes on, like, maybe this will be the time.
He'll be like, "Don't catch me if I fall."
Have you seen the a lot of its train stunts in this new one?
I have not.
There's
I don't
a
know
lot of pictures
of
the new. They had shut it down again recently because of COVID, which I bet he was mad as hell about.
I remember him yelling at that. I think it was like some set hand who wasn't wearing their mask or whatever. Yeah. And I'm not.
Good on him.
Tom Cruise might be a lunatic, but at least he's not a lunatic about COVID.
Yeah.
It's somewhat refreshing. I guess.
We're
talking about War of the Worlds.
Right.
I think the best piece of acting and stuff in that movie is when he gets back to the house after he's like his son took his car, and then he's like, "All right, we'll go back and watch your sister. I'm gonna go see what's happening or whatever." And she's like. And they come back and he's like, "What's wrong?" And he comes in, he's covered in those ashes, and he just sits down and he has like hardcore 1,000-yard stare, and then like someone touches him and he freaks out. He's like, "What's all that stuff on you or whatever?" And he gets up and he goes to the goes to the wash and he like washes off and you hear him throw up in the background
because he realizes it's people.
Yeah.
Oh.
And he also I think like he's just in shock. He's like, "We're like under attack, man." Like hardcore and he comes out of the bathroom. he looks around and he goes, Robbie, we're leaving this house in 60 seconds. And he hands him a box and he goes like, put everything in here. And they start freaking out immediately, of course, because they're children.
Right.
Whatever.
Because I know one of the criticisms people have is Dakota Fanning just screams at the highest pitches possible the whole time. And I'm like, yeah, of course she would.
That's understandable.
Yeah. Also, she's at that time, she was one of the most like prolific child actresses working.
I miss Dakota Fanning being and stuff. I know she's still around, but like,
she's still around, but Elle Fanning kind of came in out of nowhere, kind of like the Olsens.
I don't get it. I don't get the Elle
Well,
Fanning.
well,
hype.
she got in all the indie stuff.
Yeah.
Like she got in all the cool indie stuff. It's like
Maleficent and stuff.
or Suspiria and things like that. Like she was in one of those Nicholas Refn movies, The Neon Demon.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
that.
so she got in. She started doing fashion modeling, and they're like, "Oh, she's like a fashion model, so we can like put her in all these weird movies."
Oh, I remember this. This is another like a bunch of these little moments that just like.
Oh, I remember the
stick
train,
really
like
hard.
the train part. Like it was like
train's
the
on
train
fire?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's so scary. It's
Or when Dakota Fanning sees just like a mountain of dead bodies floating down the river. And
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God. Like even that though, like the part where like you realize how serious it is. When he goes to the crater the first time, there's some dick for brains mechanic who doesn't know how to fix a car, and he's like, oh, I'll try changing out the solenoid or whatever. And then he comes back because all the other cars went out, but this guy was still working on it. This car was already dead. So he takes out the solenoid, and then after shit hits the fan, Tom Cruise goes back. He makes a beeline for that car
because
all the other cars are dead. So he's like, if this car works, this is our only chance.
we got the one.
And he gets in the car, like, and at first the guy thinks he's screwing around or whatever. He's like, hey, come on. Even the kid, the first thing Dakota Fanning says, it's so greatly acted and written. She's like, whose car is this? Whose car is this? Whose car is this? Because she's afraid. She doesn't know. She keeps asking. He gets in there, he's like, sit over there. He's like, come on, Ray, roll down the window. I was like, come on. And he was like, Manny, get in the car. Get in the car. And he was like, come on, you're busting my balls. I got like 3 more cars I got to do. Come on, he's like, get in the car or you're going to die. And then he goes, you threatening me now? And he's like, I was like, what? And then there's a great shot of Dakota Fanning real quick. And she's like, what do you mean? She starts crying. Because she has no idea what's happening.
Like, what's going on?
And then he tells his son, he's like, shut the door. And then like, they shut the door. They pull out. And then the bridge just like explodes.
Because the thing comes up from the water, right?
No. Like, so like it's first of all, it's weird that if you're that close to the lightning strike, everyone else who is in that part of the neighborhood couldn't just see everything blow up.
Oh, that's
When
right. It
first
came
happened.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, but like, it's not that far away. But what happens is like, you're as you're driving, there's a big shot where you see the highway behind their house tip over, all of it.
Yeah.
Like, and it is just a huge explosion.
I mean, it's
Everyone's dead.
very, very post 9/11.
Yeah.
Like very.
And
much.
she literally says, "Is it the terrorists or whatever?" And like, it's just like, I was like floored by that whole first hour of the movie, all the way up until like we get to I think when we get to the point where like he's the only one with a car and that crowd of people attack him and stuff.
It's pretty much all the way to the point they meet Tim Robbins is when the movie slows down.
Yeah. And I don't hate that part of the movie.
Because Tim Robbins is good in it.
Yeah.
And he presents kind of a real manic energy.
But it took him 2 days to go insane, which is weird for me.
Yeah.
But
he must have already been there.
you know what I love about this movie? Tom Cruise gets to do a lot more acting than he ever gets to do in any of his movies now. He doesn't ever get to emote.
Well, he gets to do something that I like when people do with Tom Cruise, and it's something that I like about, speaking of Emily Blunt, who I felt was better served in A Quiet Place 2 than 1, is Edge of Tomorrow, where Tom Cruise plays
kind of a slimy dick.
Yeah, he plays a suit. Like, he plays just like a guy, and like his reactions to being brutalized over and over again are very good, and you really like him. I kind of really like Tom Cruise as an actor, and for some reason that's such a hot take because he's a shitty person.
I'm not saying that he's even a bad actor. I'm saying he doesn't get to do what he does in this movie ever, and hardly ever.
Where he doesn't get to be a guy.
Even like the part of it, like where he's just a dude. There's a part where after his son steals his car and then the cars die, and he goes out and he sees him in the street. He tells him to go back and watch your sister or whatever. It was like, because she's afraid because all the lightning's freaked her out or whatever. And then he leaves, and then his son, and he goes, next time you take my car with no license and I don't know where you're going, I'm calling the cops or whatever. And then he leaves, and he notices his son is still standing there. And he goes, Robbie? And he goes like, get inside, like he does the dad thing.
Yeah.
And I was like,
It's so
he never does
believable.
that.
No.
And then there's the part where
Because we've convinced ourselves that Tom Cruise can't be that because he's handsome Tom Cruise. And it's like,
and
yeah,
the,
he can.
The part where he sings to Dakota Fanning and he cries, like he's so vulnerable. He's not an action hero.
No.
Even the
He
part where
can't be in this world.
even the part where he kind of beats up some dudes who are attacking his car and his son gets swallowed by the crowd and stuff. I was just kind of like he never gets to do any of this anymore. Like, and I was like, it made me miss this kind of era of Tom Cruise where now he's kind of like the dude who has all the answers and the unstoppable.
Well, he was a little bit
a
of
Jack
that.
Ryan-y type character.
Right. It's the Ethan Hunting thing, and but like before that, like he was, he was either romantic comedy or action hero, and Spielberg was able to look at him in this movie in War of the Worlds and say, "No, you're just gonna be
He's just a working class dude."
AI as well, not AI, Minority Report as well, but he's more of a detective in that.
Minority Report's also great, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
It's great because Peter Stormare is in it, and you get the
good Colin Farrell too.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in that movie. In the world of the blind, and he goes, "The one-eyed man is king." I love that. This is what I'm talking about.
That's another forgotten Spielberg
Yes,
as well.
that's
No one talks about.
He needs to go back to this kind of movie making. And I'm not saying like.
What do you think is the last really good movie Spielberg did?
The last really good. Tintin is good, but I don't kind of count it. But
Tintin's mine. I would say Tintin's.
I want to say like
Lincoln.
Lincoln.
Oh, Lincoln's good.
I know that
Lincoln's
I know
really
it's
good.
not this kind of movie making,
Right.
but it's still really good.
Why Lincoln is so good is he had the potential to just do a biopic, and instead it's a legal drama.
It's a legal
It
drama,
has a
but
story.
It is, but the thing that he succeeds on is the same stuff that he succeeds on here, which is like little characterizations. Even like people roasting each other in the halls of Congress is somehow entertaining.
Well, it's the best part where Lincoln starts talking, and the one guy comes up to accost him, and he's like, "It kind of reminds me," and he's like, "You're gonna tell a story."
I don't think I can handle one of your stories right now.
And as he walks away, Lincoln just keeps going.
It's the Secretary of War. He goes, "Where are the documents? Where are they?"
Is it Stanton? It's William Henry Stanton.
He leaves the room in a rage because he knows. And I remember that whole thing line for line. Is it goes, Ethan Allen went and visited the house of a great British lord, and when he went to the bathroom, he noticed that in the bathroom there was a portrait of George Washington, and the English lord was like giddy because he was roasting America by putting him in a place where like people take a shit or whatever. And he goes, "Well, you went to the Privy." And he goes, "Did you see the portrait of George Washington?" And he's like, "I did." Then he goes, "What did you think of its placement?" He's like, "I thought it was very appropriate." And he goes, "What, appropriate? George Washington's likeness in a water closet?" And he goes, "Yes, sir, where it'll do much good." He goes, "Nothing will make an Englishman shit quicker than the sight of George Washington." And just like stuff like that are instantly memorable. I can tell because I remember the whole scene or whatever. And Adam Driver's in it for half a second as the do it man who does the telegraphs or whatever.
I was able to do it for you.
Yeah, but
It's just good Daniel Day-Lewis.
Even like Tommy, the scene where Tommy Lee Jones,
who's kind of the best part of the movie.
I know
he's kind of the best part of the movie.
Yeah,
he's playing one of the great Americans.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis is really great as Abraham Lincoln because he commits to the performance, whereas Tommy Lee Jones is kind of just Tommy Lee Jones. But he gets
that's never a bad thing.
I know, but like my favorite parts are when he talks. It's the speech where Pendleton from Ohio, played by the priest from Daredevil, I can't remember his name. The guy who plays the priest in the new Netflix Daredevil.
Yes,
it's that guy. You remember the actor's name?
Lincoln has a bunch of people in it. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about.
He gives him the speech when he goes, "Do you believe that?" I asked you a question, and he goes, "Do you believe that the idea that all men are created equal is meant to be taken literally?" And he goes, Gale from Breaking Bad tells him, "You can't answer that yes. You have to say, no, I don't believe all men are created equal. I only believe that all men are created equal before the law and nothing more," or whatever. And he does it, and he has to swallow his pride. And he tells the dude from Ohio, like one of the big like racist Democrats at the time, and he was like, "How can I believe that all men are created equal when standing before me is the moral carcass from the man of Ohio, proof that some men are endowed by their creator with dim wit," or whatever. And he goes, "But even godless..."
Dim what?
Even godless forsaken you, who should have been gibbeted for treason long before day.
Even long forsaken you, who should have been gibbeted for treason.
And he goes, should have been treated equally before the law. And he goes, so I don't believe in the equality of all things, only in equality before the law. And it's a great scene. And after that scene, one of his colleagues comes up and tells him how disappointed he is that he goes, I watched you refuse to admit that all people are people. And he goes, I'm nauseated. He goes, is there nothing you won't say? And then he gives him the speech. And he goes, well, I want the amendment to pass. So the first time slavery is mentioned in our amendments is its complete prohibition. So no, there is nothing I won't say or whatever. It's filled with great moments like that.
Yeah,
and even though it doesn't
great
have
script that Tony Kushner wrote, I think. Yeah.
Even though it doesn't have these big set pieces or whatever, it's a great movie.
Yeah, it doesn't need it because it works so well as what Spielberg's really good at, which is creating a way to get into a story from a different genre point of view. So it's a legal drama that happens to be about Lincoln.
But movies like The Post or Bridge of Spies or whatever, I can just kind of take them or leave them. And I know if I've seen Bridge of Spies and I liked it, but I have no impulse to go back and watch it again. Whereas like War of the Worlds, the whole first hour of the movie, I just was sitting there and I was
you make me want to go back and watch it again.
I forgot how good this movie is. And then like the Tim Robbins stuff happens and it slows down and you realize, oh, it's not really about war. It's more about like following this dude around, which is fine.
Which that's very close to the book. Like the book is about insurmountable odds. What we don't see in this is like
everybody lose.
Yeah, the desperate retaliation of all of our armaments failing against the Martians.
Yeah. Well, we do see a little piece of that when Justin Chatwin leaves and goes and joins the army, essentially.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that whole side part.
They just start firing. There's this big like hill. They're all fighting, and there's a part where you just see all the. They get engulfed by fire and they're sent back down the hill, and you see a tripod just come over, and I was like, God, that's huge.
Yeah.
And
devastating.
Good movie. What's your recommendation?
So the opening of this movie, A Quiet Place, reminded me of the film I watched or rewatched for the first time in a long time. And that is A History of Violence, directed by David Cronenberg.
I remember this movie.
A podcast I really like was talking about it, so I went back and watched it again.
It has two very weird sex scenes in it.
It does have two very complicated, fucked up sex scenes in it.
One of them is probably normal, and the other one is like, I don't know.
One of them is also still kind of weird, like, and then the other one is almost a rape scene.
Yeah, you're talking about like the cheerleaders.
Yeah.
Why is that weird?
Because it's like it's the infantilization thing. Like it's like
that's normal though.
Yeah, I get it, but like the thing I listened to, I was like, they made
I was like, what's happening right now?
It's wild as hell. So, A History of Violence is directed by the legendary Canadian director David Cronenberg, known for
The Fly. Is the thing I'm most
fucking
known
Fly. He did a version of The Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
I remember that one.
He did Scanners.
That was back with like Donald Sutherland, wasn't it?
No, that was a different one.
What's the new Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
That was a '90s one that he did. It had nobody of note in it.
Okay, cool.
But the one with Sutherland was different.
Okay.
Because this one was like wild body horror. He speaking of James Woods, he did Videodrome, Scanners,
Yes.
Existence.
I don't know that one.
But he does a
lot of good stuff. Though.
A lot of good stuff. Crash, not that Crash. Not that Crash. The one where people are fucking each other after car crashes crash. Because that movie's NC-17 wild. Yeah. Got an NC-17 rating.
He's
a body horror curious about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's fucked up Ang Lee. Is what I call it or whatever.
I would see that. So this is a movie where Viggo Mortensen plays a small town guy working. He's got a family. He's with Maria Bello.
His name's Tom, or is it Joey Cusack or whatever?
I love that you remember it.
I love it. I remember this movie
because it's hard to forget once Ed Harris shows up and he's just Joey.
Yeah.
Hey, have you got anything, Joey?
I remember because the movie opens with the two thugs that he kills.
It opens with Stephen McHattie.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder's guy, Stephen McHattie.
Who's that? I'm trying to think who that is now. Is it the older guy?
Yeah. He's the one who plays the first Owlman, the first night owl.
Oh yeah, he's the gun shop owner in Dawn of the Dead.
Yes.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about now.
Stephen McHattie.
He's also 300 as a council guy.
Yeah, he's a Snyder guy. He shows up in Snyder stuff, but he's him and this other guy are just doing a spree killing throughout, and
they kill and robbed the hotel clerk.
It's so upsetting because the film just opens and it's quiet, and it's just like these guys come out, and then he's like, go get some water, and he goes in and he just sees that they've massacred this place, and a little girl comes out, and this guy
he tells her to come here, and then he reaches
pulls
for
the
his
gun
gun
out, and
cuts
to Viggo Mortensen's daughter screaming, and so it's another edit thing, and his name's Tom. He's married to Maria Bello. They've got this nice
diner.
Owns a diner. He lives in this nice little place in Idaho, Iowa, one of those Midwestern places. And these two guys show up, and he's trying to close up, and they're just like, Stephen McHattie is just like, coffee, black, and it's just like, well,
I'm sorry,
we're
man, we're closed, and he goes, coffee, and he just screams at him,
it's just they're gonna start laying waste this place to get some money quick, and he just springs into action. He busts Stephen McHattie.
It's a pretty bad idea too. That diner is like right in the middle of Main Street.
Yeah, it's not a smart move to knock off this diner.
Like everyone will see you. Like anyway.
But I think these guys are just so over it. They're just like they don't.
They're
see
moving
these people.
so much that like by the time you've gotten to the police or whatever, they're already gone into the next state.
But they were not expecting this. He just takes this coffee can and eliminates his head, takes the gun, wipes them both out, and becomes a hometown hero. Even though everybody who saw it happen is just like, Jesus.
Yeah,
Tom.
The first thing he does is he kills. The first thing he does is he smashes the old guy.
Yeah, he smashes Steve McHattie with the coffee can.
He shoots the young guy
right out.
The other guy stabs him in the foot or something, and then he just
also speaking of a good and then he pops him in the head.
Pops him like right in the face.
Yeah, and you get to see because the violence in this movie, A History of Violence, is not pleasant.
Pretty grim.
It's people get wiped out in this flick.
Yeah,
but he becomes the ultimate villain of this movie is small town news media. Because they just are just like, Tom is a hero. He saved us all.
I remember isn't there a clip of him in one of those news, like a slight news interview, and he goes, like, how did you feel? And he goes, I don't know. I just did what everyone else thought. The weird thing is that he's lying.
Right.
But I imagine a scenario where something like this maybe would have happened in real life or whatever, and the guy would be like, I'm not a hero. It was terrifying.
There's all kinds of hero stories, but we don't know how it goes down because it's like America has this fetishization and fascination with violence and retribution that we're like, yeah, the hero has the gun and wins.
Yeah.
But it ends up undoing his life.
When in reality, if you talked about like if you talk to like, I don't know, soldiers who've had to kill people in the line of duty, and
or just civilians who had to take someone out because they had a they tried to kill him.
And they're like, oh, it was deeply unpleasant, and I hope I never have to do it again.
Yeah.
Which is probably the more accurate thing. But yeah, he becomes a hero, but it has repercussions.
Ed Harris comes to town, and he's 100% in this movie. Like Ed Harris, everyone's great. Viggo's awesome in this. Maria Bello's really great in it. But Ed Harris comes to town with some goons, and they
really are goons, aren't they?
They're bad goons,
they look
man.
Like
they're
goons,
goons because
they got the cheesy yellow blazers and the gold chains.
No, like he's just got the good old black suit.
No, but his goons do. Is what I mean. That's why they look like
when they
goons.
show up. Viggo's just like, I don't think those guys are from the news because he's like, I don't know them. He knows them, and he comes up and just like, yeah, I want some of your coffee, Joey. And he's like, I've never heard of that person in my life.
Joey.
Who's Joey? And it's just like
Viggo Mortensen plays it really good. In the whole beginning of the movie, I am kind of like, is he? Is he?
Mm-hmm.
Is he? Or is they haven't mistaken with someone else? I don't know.
And Ed Harris just starts just sticking around, causing trouble. He this poor sheriff in this town comes around and is just like he goes and pulls him over. And they just pretty much browbeat him, like just like a nice job, officer. Good job, sheriff. You run on back home now. And he's quick to figure out like, Tom, is something going on? So it turns out that
he knows that they're organized crime dudes.
Right. He's like, these guys don't come out of nowhere. These guys keep to themselves. They wouldn't come here unless they knew they had the right man. Yeah. So I need you to be honest with me. And so the veneer of comfort, the veneer of normalcy starts falling apart. And eventually,
I remember the scene where he confronts Maria Bello
at the mall,
in like the mall or something.
yeah, because he's watching the daughter, and he's just like, she's just right
Which is
there.
scary.
Miss Stahl, like she's just fine.
He's
Don't
just
worry about-"
he's just like some mafia fixer.
Yeah, and
who's
he's
just
got
watching your daughter, and he's got this huge scar on his eyes.
Because he has that great line where he's like, I can still see pretty well out of this eye, but I can't see too well out of this eye. But there's one thing I always see, and I always see Joey Cusack. Yeah. And he's like, hey, he took him out with barbed wire.
Yeah, he said he ripped my eye out with a piece of barbed wire or whatever. I remember that. This is a good movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie. So
William Hurt's in it at the end.
William Hurt, who got nominated for an Oscar for this movie, he's in it for 5 minutes.
I feel like he shouldn't have, though.
Yeah,
I feel like there are other
everybody
people
else in this movie.
is better.
Hurt's great. His bit is
No, he's fine. He's
amazing.
just not better than Ed Harris or Viggo Mortensen.
Right, or even Maria Bello should have gotten an Oscar for this, because eventually it's revealed in an amazing scene when Ed Harris shows up to confront them, because there's also this little thing about the hereditary nature of violence, because the son is getting bullied kind of silly and melodramatically by just some other guy. Like, he's not a wimp, like he's got a girlfriend and everything. He's just like a stoner.
It's like a no, like the son is like a pretty normal dude.
Yeah.
But like the bullying is so over the top. I
Right.
shudder to think.
He's just throwing.
I hope bullying like that doesn't really exist. Like, he hits a home run off of his bully's pitch, and he's like, "You think you're hot shit, don't you, kid?" or whatever. And
Yeah,
goes,
he's just throwing awful
no, I'm
homophobic
like,
slurs.
It's just baseball, man. It's stupid. And he
Yeah,
goes, who you calling stupid, man? Like, and I was just like, oh my god. It's but he beats the shit out of him later in the movie.
He you stupid cocksucker motherfucker, but that, I think it's not talked about in the movie, but I feel like that's really representative of like that Tom Stahl can say whatever he wants, but Joey Cusack is this boy's father, and the violence in him is in his son. Because later when Ed Harris and the crew show up, it's he when he kills this guy, these two goons, he smashes his nose up and everything.
I remember that one.
It's some brutal takedowns, but Ed Harris is about to finish him off, because Ed Harris is just watching him just like marine these guys dead, and he's just like, what the fuck? Wait, just shoot him. And the son,
There's a couple of those of mob guys getting mad at their henchmen moments in this.
There's a great one later.
It's
the William Hurt.
How do you
fuck that up with the garrote wire?
Yeah, anyway.
The guy comes in and is just like, what are you going to do? CPR? What are you going to do? Mouth to mouth?
Mouth to mouth? Get out there. Like,
Find my brother. But the son blows Ed Harris away, just turns his...
It's interesting that you brought like the hereditary angle into it, because when I looked at that scene, I always thought like, oh, he kind of bought into the thing about his dad, like the media, the hype, the story, and he thought that it was okay.
There's that line, because Tom's been the whole time, Viggo's just been like, hey, we don't do that around here. We don't. Our family's like, he's like, that's right, we don't beat people up, we just shoot them.
And then he slaps his son.
Yeah.
And then he realizes he shouldn't have slapped his son. But then it's like, I like to think for a second, like, probably not or whatever. It's probably just like him getting flustered at his teenage son. But I like to think kind of maybe Joey Cusack.
No, it is. I think that's the case. Is Joey's coming through, because one of the best scenes in the movie in terms of performance is Maria Bello comes to visit him in the hospital, and she confronts him and is just like,
"Who is Joey Cusack?
Tell me, be honest. Like, would Tom do that?" And he's like, the great line is she says like, who is Tom Stahl? Like, did you just make that up? And he just says, it was available, and she runs to the bathroom, vomits.
Well, no, she vomits after he says, honey, I don't know. Like, I took Joey Cusack
out
to
the desert
and I
killed him. And that's when it hits her. And she's like, Maria Bella's playing it like so close to the gut, literally. Like, she's like, don't tell me. Just don't tell me. And when she does, she loses it and just gets sick. And I found his choice of words interesting. I killed him. It implies that he wanted to leave this stuff behind. And he did. Apparently it's been, because Ed Harris even mentions like Joey, you've been this Tom guy longer than you've been Joey. So he left this like 20 years ago or something. It's still very vague, but he left all this like 20 years. He thought this was all behind him. And then of course, like, we discovered that after all is said and done, like Richie Cusack, William Hurt calls him up and it's just like, Broham. I love he calls him Broham. Just like, let's finish this. Let's figure this out. And he decides to just sit that ass down in that truck and drive all the way to Philly.
That's the part that doesn't ever make sense to me in this movie.
500 miles.
That too, but also just like, why would you go?
He knows it's got to end. Like he knows it's got to end. Like,
so you think he goes there to kill William Hurt?
Yeah.
Okay.
He goes there to shut it down. He goes cause I think it's like he's like, look, I'm done with this. Leave my family alone. This was an accident. But then you find out that William Hurt's whole thing, because he makes it back to Philly, gets in the car and everything, and comes around. And there's a great bit where he just like lives out in like the suburbs in a castle, and it just kind of the guy who's driving is just like, he's like, that's a nice place. Yeah, really nice gate. Yeah, the boss has really good taste. There's just these little talks they have, and Hurt's great. He's so over the top mafia guy. Yeah. But you realize like he's like, if I don't take care of you, like because Fogarty, that's Ed Harris's character, yeah. Fogarty, he's like you fucked up a made man. Like that makes me look bad. I can't rise in the ranks until I take care of you. So this is
20 years later though.
Yeah. But that's a grudge he's kept.
Yeah, this is the part that never quite made sense to me. Is he's like, he goes out to this dude's house and he's like, you cost me so much with all these guys, a hell of a lot or whatever.
Yeah. And you know how much you cost me? A hell of a lot, Joey. A hell of a lot.
And I'm just like, 20 years though? You couldn't.
At least 20 years.
Yeah, like they've been wanting this guy dead for this long or whatever, or like it just seems out of nowhere. I just kind of like said forget about it.
It keeps it vague because we don't even know if he's in witness protection. He even mentioned witness protection, and he didn't even confirm that. He just left the game. Yeah, and it was an accident, and clearly Fogarty.
If he was in witness protection, it wouldn't be I killed Joey Cusack. He would have a handler that he has to talk to.
Right. But there's none of that. Yeah, he did this on his own accord.
Right.
And so and eventually like he wraps everything up, and he wipes these dudes out. Yeah. And it's
I wish the kills were a little more creative near the end.
But I think that the point is that he steps on a guy's throat and it turns into a dummy. Like he just goes.
Yeah.
Like it's meant to be horrific. It's meant to be almost inhuman.
It's not even that it's like horrific necessarily. It's just that I wish that it was a little more like this guy's a trained professional.
Mm-hmm. Like, well, he's also
not just like because he kind of kills people in like a way that like I feel like.
No! It's the line that makes her throw up. Is like, did you kill for money or pleasure? And he says a little bit of both.
Oh,
at really? Yeah, he's like a little bit of both.
It's been a while. I don't remember all the lines, but I remember enough of it.
But eventually there's like a whole thing with the key because he's able to lock him out and come out and Jesus Joey, pow,
blows him away.
Jesus Richie. That's the last lines of the movie because then eventually he
goes home and they just look at each other.
Well, he's not just before that. He goes to the creek nearby, like the pond, and like baptizes himself again, like to get all the blood off. Like it looks like a baptism. Like he's just like and he goes back, but he realizes he can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
It's out now,
and it's a really sweet scene where the little girl brings him the plate, and it's just like whatever happens, I still accept you.
Yeah, she still loves him because she doesn't know all the shit that's
right. But the son does, and he still passes the food. It's just because. We haven't talked about it, but there's the scene when she confronts him in the thing, and they have a fight on the stairs,
which leads to sex.
Which leads
to
it is a very disturbing, weird line between just wild tantric sex and rape.
It's that murky water.
Yeah, and you don't know who has the power over the situation, or if that's even him, if that's not Joey Cusack. Like,
how do you watch that scene? I guess in a way.
How do I watch it?
Not like how do you watch it, but like how do you see it?
I see it as that. I see it as Cronenberg, because Cronenberg is always about sex and violence. Like he's always about the body as a vulnerable thing. Like and so like it is murky. It's meant to be disturbing. It's meant to be like these are two people who you're not sure who Viggo Mortensen is at this point, what he's morphing into.
I'm almost how she takes it, because it's like she clearly is just like
she clearly has a moment where she goes in all on it, but at that point, like
Yeah,
you
that's
said,
the thing-
it's murky.
That's the
It's-
thing with me is because she starts off, she like tells him like "fuck you" and like kicks him down the
yeah,
stairs,
fuck you, Joey.
and then like by the end she's participating in it. Like that's the weird thing where I'm like, where is this? Like, why does she do that? What's the line?
It's just the moment, but also is that moment that again, it's meant to be very upsetting and blurry.
Are we supposed to assume that she goes to like it at some point? 'Cause I feel like
You don't want to say it. You don't want to say it because the movie is almost asking you, what do you think?
Well, no, I feel like the movie is saying at this point she's having sex with him back or whatever. So it feels kind of like, yeah, I don't know. That seems like
the power dynamics change, and then she gets off of him and just like is still like fuck you, but because
at the end she still tells him to go fuck you or whatever.
Because so it's like, I mean, it's just one of those things in a moment of just like identity crisis and panic, and where violence and sex just clash in this strange way.
It's weird watching this movie. And then, like, you look, its bigger brother is like Eastern Promises.
Yeah.
That second movie that he did. Like,
that's one I need to go back to and watch again. I remember
movie doesn't hold up nearly as well as this one does.
History of Violence.
But this
History of Violence might be one of the better movies of the aughts.
Yeah, because Eastern Promises is like he's actually an undercover cop. And I'm like, oh, that's not as interesting anymore.
Is he? Oh, I forgot about that.
He's been undercover. Like they gave him this my tattoo, but like they gave him he's got the stars.
Yeah, he's got the stars.
Whatever.
Yeah,
like
it's been a very long time since I've seen that movie.
But they have like a weird naked spa fight where he.
I'm never gonna forget that scene where his ding dong's swinging around while he's knifing guys.
He has the curved knife.
Yeah, he's got like a shodel. Yeah,
and he gets like horribly. Like he almost dies. He gets cut so many times with that knife.
That's a brutal movie.
Yeah,
Eastern Promises.
There's even a part where they're like cutting the fingertips off of a corpse and they're dumping it in the river so you can't identify who it is and stuff. Like that's like the casualness of that movie
versus the deliberateness of this. Well, it's two different worlds entirely, and also, hey, Viggo Mortensen, one of the great actors, to be able to play both.
Yeah,
because he is Mr. Clean to the T in this until the Joey comes out, and there's a physicality change in him, like the way he moves, the way his body reacts, like it's like he's possessed.
Yeah, it's also worth pointing out this is based off a graphic novel.
Yeah,
by Max Allan Collins, I think.
Yeah, it's Max Allan Collins, and I think a lot of people have come around to be like, it's not as good as the movie. Like, I think even some of the creators just like the movie's better.
Probably. There's a couple of things like that. Like Road to Perdition is also technically a comic book.
But it's also the adaptations.
I think that movie's way better.
Yeah, it was.
I've never read the comics.
I watched Road to Perdition again for the first time recently. Yeah, movie's amazing.
It is. It's good stuff.
That's a movie where they...
For the first time?
Yeah, for the first time, man. Earlier this year.
Yeah,
I never sat down with it.
The scene in the rain where he just kills them all. And then, what's his name? The famous actor who's now dead, Paul Newman.
Paul Newman.
He's like, I'm glad it's you. And he just, it's good stuff.
That movie does something
Jude
amazing.
Law is like a James Bond villain in it.
They turn two traditionally very beautiful actors into horrible, ugly monsters in it, and it's Daniel Craig and Jude Law.
Is Daniel Craig beautiful though? He kind of looks like a thumb. He's got a
He is a
face.
handsome man. Well, talk about. Well, in this movie, it's so early in his career.
That's true.
Like this is before Munich
it's before
and Layer
Casino
Cake.
Royale.
Yeah, it's before Layer Cake and Munich, which get him Bond. But in those, he's like, he's a built, handsome blonde man. Yeah. In this, he's so skeezy in Road to Perdition. And then Jude Law is a monster. He's a gargoyle from another world.
I like Jude Law in that movie though. I even love the.
I take pictures.
I even love the conversation when he has what's his name, Stanley Tucci.
Yeah,
who plays a real mob.
He plays
mob guy.
He plays Meyer Lansky, I think, or plays somebody. He plays
a mob accountant guy
for Capone.
Existed
because Capone shows up in it for a second, but it's like just some guy playing Capone.
Yeah, and Tucci calls Jude Law's character, and he's like, "You need to take out." I can't remember Tom Hanks' name, Mike something, whatever. And he goes, "Do you know who he is?" Like, "Oh, like yeah, I know his work. Like I'm an admirer or whatever." Mm-hmm. Like I love there's little things with Jude Law throughout that movie that I think are really good.
He's very much like a pulp. He's like a noir pulp villain.
Yeah,
like
the scene at the diner.
That's what I'm talking about. Where he's like, I take pictures.
Immediately, Tom Hanks knows what's up. He's like, this guy's insane. I'm going to go to the bathroom. And he sneaks out and slashes his
And that
tires.
poor cop gets
he kills the cop who comes out. Yeah. That's a good movie.
That's a really good movie.
Sam Mendes at his best there. Anyway.
But A History of Violence.
Good movie.
Very good movie. Also about, much like A Quiet Place, an Americana thriller horror sort of thing.
It has that in a weird way, that sex scene is the most like morally, I don't want to say ambiguous, morally conflicted part of it. Because like if you're watching that movie, like, so did he rape her? Is that rape? Does he go to jail? What's going on?
Cronenberg throws it at you.
Yeah, he doesn't give a fuck.
It's so wild that Cronenberg is now, for the most modern audiences, they know him because of Rick and Morty. And it's mostly because of all the body horror. But he did this movie, which the violence in it is body horror. Because like I said, Ed Harris.
It's pretty reserved. The violence isn't like over, like he doesn't shoot a guy and their head goes.
Right, their head doesn't scanners.
Yeah, like he shoots
But when he
them
pops
like,
Stephen McCatty's head, it's
it's real. It's like
Yeah.
I think
It's
he
real
tries to make
violence.
it look as real as possible.
Yeah. Well, that's my recommendation. We got a couple of small town meets terror
Yeah.
trio here.
It's good stuff.
Good stuff.
What has Cronenberg done since then?
Cosmopolitan with my man
Robert Pattinson?
Robert Pattinson.
What's that about? Don't tell me. We'll talk about it later. This podcast has gone on for too long.
Yeah.
That's
All
a good
right.
movie. But like History of Violence, I could not recommend that movie more. That's a great movie.
It's a good.
It's not for the faint of heart,
No,
probably, but it's a good movie.
It's up there in the top movies of the like it's like If There Will Be Blood and No Country are up there. This is right next to them.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably right. I feel like the only thing I don't like is like the ending and like the ambiguity of his conflict with his brother. I just wish that was
and the kids are not great actors.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
not
you're probably
great
right.
actors. But I mean, you got Maria Bello there, and she's killing it.
Yeah, everyone else is great.
That movie did deserve.
William
a
Hurt
lot
does not
more.
deserve that nomination.
He's great,
Ed
but
Harris
not
is
Ed
way
Harris.
more-
Should have got it.
Yeah.
Don't forget your shoes.
All right,
Yeah,
this is
this has been the movie day.
Yeah. You can follow us on YouTube. Subscribe, please, and like. You can follow us on Facebook, and you can find us on iTunes and Podbean. All the good stuff. We'll see you guys next time. Probably have a bonus episode out by then as well.
Yeah.
I've been Rob.
I've been Matt.
This is a This is a podcast.
There's
for
a
people
game
who
of
like
podcasts.
movies. But this is a podcast for people who like movies. Don't want to be too smug about it. We will see you guys next time.
Take care.